Black technology, the super empire that spans two worlds. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26, Reverse Setting. As Xiao Yu left, Xiao Yu thought for a moment and opened his personal Weibo account, edited a Weibo post and posted it. The graphene material preparation technology mastered by Linghan New Materials has now achieved high purity mass production, with a purity of up to 99.99999%. The era of mass production of ultra-high purity graphene materials has arrived. We strive to bring down the price. When the price drops, the market will expand exponentially, allowing more people to enjoy the dividends of scientific and technological progress. At present, ultra-high purity graphite materials cost thousands or tens of thousands of yuan per gram. We strive to reduce the price from the 10,000 yuan level to within the 1,000 yuan level, and our mass-produced graphene is higher purity and better quality. Now there are obviously more people following Xiao Yu's Weibo. The number of followers of his account has exceeded 200,000, reaching 280,000 and will soon exceed 300,000. Moreover, the increase is mainly from stock investors, and there is no shortage of hot money that has also clicked on the follow-up and will keep a close eye on his Weibo news. After Xiao Yu published this microblog, it undoubtedly boosted the confidence of the market bulls again. The daily limit of Prism technology today is completely sealed, and it is impossible to open it again. Tomorrow is also the rhythm of a daily limit. Some big funds involved in the market said that they really made the right bet. This market expectation management is indeed very good. Many investors said that Mr. Xiao has something. Every day there is news beyond expectations to stimulate emotions. Around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Zhou Beichuan came to Xiao Yu's private villa to visit. Fortunately, Mr. Zhou, I finally completed the performance commitment to the investor within the agreed period of the agreement. The company's current market value has exceeded 30 billion, Xiao Yu said with a smile on his face. At first glance, it seems that they are old partners who have a very pleasant cooperation. It's really unexpected, haha, Zhou Beichuan replied with a laugh, but in fact he was cursing in his heart. How could he not hear that Xiao Yu was mocking him with the attitude of a winner? The atmosphere at this time seemed very harmonious on the surface, but in fact, the short orders of several investors such as Penghu Capital were already in a state of being forced to short, turning from profit to big loss within one day, and the overall floating loss was more than 12 percentage points. Mr. Zhou, this is not the place to talk, let's chat while steaming in the sauna, Xiao Yu said with a pleasant face, and turned to look at the housekeeper Xiao Yu. Uncle Xiao Yu immediately responded, it's ready, there is a sauna room in the villa, which Xiao Yu rarely uses. At this moment, he has already asked the housekeeper to arrange it. Mr. Xiao is young and promising, and he is becoming more and more stable. His future is limitless, Zhou Beichuan smiled and said, cursing again in his heart. This kid is really cautious. Zhou Beichuan knew that Xiao Yu was inviting him to chat while taking a sauna on the surface, but in fact he was worried that he had some bugs on him and recorded the conversation between the two parties. When he went to the sauna to take a bath and steam a sauna, he had to take off the bugs along with his clothes. Obviously, Xiao Yu is no longer the fledgling boy he was back then. He naturally heard the hidden meaning in Zhou Beichuan's words, and Xiao Yu also smiled and replied, with the guidance of Mr. Zhou and other senior bosses, it is impossible not to grow fast. Hearing Xiao Yu say the word guidance, Zhou Beichuan smiled and said nothing. After the episode, there were only 2 people in the sauna room. Xiao Yu smiled as usual and said, calculating the time, the stocks of Penghu Capital and several other investors will soon be released. I think they need to withdraw after investing in Prism technology for 6 or 7 years, at least to recover the investment cost. Zhou Beichuan didn't know what he was up to, and he also heard that he didn't finish his words, so he didn't say anything and let him speak first. Xiao Yu continued calmly, this is what I think. I plan to manage the market value and strive to push the stock price directly to 100 yuan, which is a market value of more than 80 billion yuan. I will raise the stock price so that you can withdraw with rich profits. Even if it is cut in half, the stock price will still be 50 yuan. Zhou Beichuan had to ask for a quick-acting heart-saving pill after hearing this. Penghu Capital now has a lot of short orders and has already started to lose money today. The more the stock price rises, the more losses it will suffer. My goodness, if you want to push the price to 100 yuan, you don't need 100 yuan, but 70 yuan will cause a liquidation. At this time, Zhou Beichuan was really upset to hear this, but he couldn't say anything wrong about him. Enough now, Mr. Xiao doesn't have to pay too much attention to the capital market, Zhou Beichuan said quickly. After all, you are a technical entrepreneur, so you should focus on technology research and development and corporate operations. Paying too much attention to the capital market will deviate from the main business, which may not be a good thing for the long-term development of the company. As for corporate market value management, we professional institutions will do it. The implication is that I have been honest. Please let me go. You have also won the gambling agreement. Please don't push it up. Let me close my short position. Xiao Yu couldn't help but smile again, but the smile was a bit intriguing. Both sides are now playing dumb, but they can understand the other side's meaning. The fight between the two sides is still going on. From the surface of the conversation between them, it can't be seen that the two sides have grievances. In the next conversation, Zhou Beichuan hoped that Xiao Yu could release his short position tomorrow and close the position in time to stop the loss. But Xiao Yu's attitude was that it was impossible to think of it tomorrow. You must cut your losses at a higher position to calm my anger and continue the cooperation. You set up a trap to cheat me before, so I have to get some ground back. You have to admit this, otherwise I won in vain? How can you admit defeat without paying a price? Zhou Beichuan was very upset, but the situation was stronger than him. Then Xiao Yu began to set a trap in the opposite direction, hinting to Zhou Beichuan in the conversation that he did not want to completely fall out with the capital. There are no eternal enemies, only eternal interests. Cooperation can continue, but you as the capital party must completely hand over the right to speak. And also give up some interests. You cheated me once, and I can't leave hidden dangers again. It depends on whether you are willing to cooperate. If you are willing, I will really let Linghan New Materials merge and reorganize, and let Prism Technology fully absorb 100% of Linghan New Materials equity. If you don't agree, then I, Xiao Yu, will announce the failure of this merger and reorganization. Let alone 100%, even the 51% will be gone. After such a game of chess, Zhou Beichuan was caught by Xiao Yu. On the one hand, Xiao Yu has now completed the gambling agreement, which is equivalent to removing the tight hoop on Sun Wukong's head, and it can no longer hinder Xiao Yu. Prism Technology has been completely under his control since today. On the other hand, Xiao Yu has thrown out a risky but attractive plan. Xiao Yu's attitude is that he is unwilling to completely fall out with capital, especially expressing that there are no eternal enemies but only eternal interests. This attitude makes Zhou Beichuan feel that he should not really want to completely tear his face apart. As long as he can get back his ground this time, the matter will be over, and the boat of friendship can row happily again. In this way, Zhou Beichuan was really manipulated by Xiao Yu. Chapter 27, A world where only Penghu Capital and a few other investors are hurt. Zhou Beichuan stayed for more than an hour before leaving Xiao Yu's residence. He did not express his opinion on the spot, but proposed to go back and talk to several other investors and give a definite answer tomorrow. Xiao Yu readily agreed to this, because he was not the one in a hurry. Less than 10 minutes after Zhou Beichuan left, Wen Suking arrived at Xiao Yu's residence. Xiao Yu invited her to the living room. Wen Suking sat down and said with a smile, "This time I have helped you to get a big boss who can stabilize the situation. I guarantee that after this incident, the investors of Penghu Capital will not dare to retaliate against you." This made Xiao Yu quite surprised and curious. "Oh? Big boss," Wen Suking nodded, "you are engaged in a fierce zero-sum game with those investors. One of them is bound to lose badly. This matter has great potential risks for you. It is not ruled out that they may take risks to make you disappear if they lose too much. The benefits are huge." This is not a joke. Xiao Yu remained silent when he heard this. Wen Suking's words were not alarmist. He had thought about this issue a long time ago. It was also his biggest concern. Personal safety was indeed the biggest potential risk in the future. At this time, Wen Suking looked at Xiao Yu and smiled, "So I asked Uncle Xiong to calm you down, so that Rulian Group can intervene at the right time, so that Penghu Capital and other investors will believe that Rulian is interested in this benefit, and Rulian asked you to cooperate in hunting them down." Wen Suking continued, "In this way, the core of the contradiction will be transferred from you to Rulian Group, and you can be removed from the center of the storm. At most, It will become a secondary contradiction, and the corresponding potential risks will definitely be greatly reduced. Rulian Group stood in front, which was an existence that Penghu Capital and other investors could not afford to offend. Xiao Yu was secretly surprised when he heard her words. He really didn't expect Wen Suking to have such a strong network of people in the Beijing circle. Xiao Yu had heard of Rulian Group. This group company not only has a huge asset scale of 300 billion, but the most important thing is that the major shareholders behind it have several state-owned enterprises. Zhou Beichuan's Penghu Capital and several other investment institutions have a total asset size of more than 150 billion yuan, but they definitely dare not mess with Rulian Group. Even if Rulian's size is halved from the current level, the major shareholders of several rice enterprises behind it can keep Zhou Beichuan and others in line. Xiao Yu looked at Wen Suking in surprise and said, I didn't expect that Rulian could be moved by you. The uncle Xiang you just mentioned, is he Mr. Xiang Changguang, the current vice president of Rulian? Xiao Yu has heard of this person. He is now the vice president of Rulian Group. His immediate boss has been away from office for about a year and a half. Xiang Changguang is likely to take over the Rulian Group. Wen Suking nodded and smiled. Yes, that's right. After getting her affirmative answer, Xiao Yu couldn't help but ask curiously, you call him Uncle Xiang, when did you get together with the young master of the Xiang family? I thought you were still single. Wen Suking smiled and said, you want to trick me? Why do you suddenly like gossiping? But it's nothing. We have been together for more than 2 years, and we haven't made an official announcement and we don't plan to make an official announcement. If that's the case, then it makes sense. No wonder she was able to ask Rulian Group to come to help. The Xiang family's base is in Beijing, and their style of doing things is very low-key, so it's not surprising. It's normal that they haven't made an official announcement after being together for 2 years. After the episode, the topic was quickly passed. Xiao Yu would not pry too much into other people's private lives. He turned the conversation back to the main topic, and looked at Wen Suking with a smile and said, I wonder what requirements Rulian has for entering the market. Xiao Yu did not believe that Rulian Group was helping out without asking for anything in return. Even if Wen Suking was the daughter-in-law of the Xiang family, her reputation was not so great. She must have really set her sights on the benefits of Ling and new materials. Rulian Group was willing to take the lead and ask for some benefits in return. Xiao Yu did not mind. However, if Penghu Capital and several other investors were cleared out, the newly entered Rulian Group would also want control or use its superiority to pressure others. Even with Wen Suking's relationship, Xiao Yu would not hesitate to fight back. Wen Suking smiled and said, let's not go through all the twists and turns. We can invite anyone to come and keep things under control, so we might as well just find our own family. I do have a little selfish motive here. If I make this happen, Rulian will get rich rewards, Uncle Xiang will be more stable in managing Rulian in the future, and I will be more respected and my position will be more stable. She spoke these things very frankly, and even without Xiao Yu saying it, he could understand the logic of interests here. No problem. As an old classmate, I support you. Xiao Yu smiled and added bluntly, but how does Rulian plan to intervene? Wen Suking replied immediately, I know what you may be worried about, but you can rest assured that Rulian will bring several other large institutions that will enter the market later to intervene as financial investors. They will not interfere with the company. You still have the final say in the company and will sign a concerted action agreement with you. There is no gambling requirement and no additional conditions. In addition, you will not be asked for equity. You are still the largest shareholder and actual controller of the company. Rulian and several other large institutions will divide up the equity held by several investors of Penghu Capital. Everything else remains unchanged. Of course, the company cannot really delist. This is the request of the other institutions. Xiao Yu secretly breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this. This exceeded his expectations and was much better than he expected. It couldn't be better. Everyone is fine, and only several investors of Penghu Capital are hurt. Xiao Yu looked at Wen Suking and smiled. I think you must have put a lot of thought into mediating this. In this case, I can't find any reason to refuse. Wen Suking said, to be honest, I know you will definitely not give up control or allow outsiders to interfere. I was very worried at first, but Uncle Xiang told me that if you are really willing to compromise and give up control, he will be greatly disappointed and will kick you out without hesitation. Of course, he will let you take the money and leave instead of taking everything. Wen Suking went on, Uncle Xiang said that only a truly strong person can achieve a height that ordinary people can hardly match in their lifetime, and a truly strong person will never allow himself to lose control or be constrained. What's more, you have already stepped on a landmine once and almost exploded. Rulian only makes friends with the strong. Xiao Yu was speechless and smiled. Mr. Xiang is indeed a big man with great courage and vision. He will surely be able to take charge of the Rulian group. It has to be said that when people like Zhou Beichuan are compared with people like Xiang Changguang, the gap is immediately apparent. In fact, there is another reason why Xiang Changguang did not seek corporate control over Xiao Yu's company. That is, Xiao Yu is not only the head of the company, but also a technician, and a top technical talent. This is the key point. Both Prism Technology and Linghan New Materials are high-tech companies rather than traditional companies. If Xiao Yu is driven out, what if he comes up with a more powerful technology that can quickly defeat the existing technology products? Isn't there a precedent now? Several investors of Penghu Capital want to eat up Xiao Yu and drive him out. Now, he has come up with a more powerful technology. Xiang Changguang knows that technology is a big variable. This variable not only has subversive power, but also is very sudden and unpredictable. Especially if there is a revolutionary technological breakthrough, even Rulian Group can be subverted. For people like Xiao Yu who have the potential to create technological variables, Xiang Changguang's principle is to avoid confrontation as much as possible unless necessary, but to give priority to winning over, cooperation, mutual benefit and win-win. Xiao Yu was also very satisfied that when Suking brought him several large institutions from the Rulian Group to stabilize the situation. They had no ill intentions, did not use their power to oppress others, and cooperated in a friendly and mutually beneficial way. This was a win-win situation for everyone. The demands of the Rulian Group were also reasonable. They would not take the benefits for nothing. They would stand up and strongly block the guns, and deter Zhou Beichuan and other financial institutions. In the future, they would also deter other covetous persons, which could save Xiao Yu a lot of potential troubles. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28, Take in the Hook. What Rulian Group can provide is exactly what Xiao Yu needs but does not have. Rulian came with goodwill to make good connections, and when Suking mediated, it was natural for the two sides to reach a cooperation without any resistance. The entry of several new institutions of Rulian Group did not take away the benefits from Xiao Yu, but divided the benefits of several investors in Penghu Capital and drove Zhou Beichuan and others out. Xiao Yu did not pay any price, and even had several more powerful backers to keep the place. This can provide great help to Xiao Yu's career. Of course, only being strong is the foundation, which Xiao Yu is also clear about. But before he grows into a supergiant, with Rulian Group in front, he can avoid being coveted by many demons and monsters, which can save a lot of trouble. After a while, Xiao Yu also told Wen Suking what he had discussed with Zhou Beichuan before, and then communicated about the next plan layout to ensure the unity of caliber and let the plan be implemented smoothly. On the other hand, Zhou Beichuan discussed the response strategy with several other investors as soon as he returned. Now that the share price of Prism Technology has far exceeded the target price, it has become an established fact that Xiao Yu won the bet agreement, and capital can no longer pose any threat to his control of Prism Technology. After repeated analysis and consideration, Zhou Beichuan and others had to admit this fact. However, what they are most concerned about is Xiao Yu's subsequent promises, and their concerns are still very big. But in the face of huge temptations of interests, they all agreed in the end that Xiao Yu should really not want to completely break up with capital. There are no eternal enemies, no eternal friends, only eternal interests. Zhou Beichuan and others also agree with this sentence. Although Xiao Yu can no longer be controlled, if Linghan New Materials merges with Prism Technology, the future stock price is expected to rise to the level of 100 billion. Even if the market value is cut in half and withdrawn, it can take away more than 18 billion with interest, which is undoubtedly an astronomical figure. After some discussion, Zhou Beichuan and others decided to show weakness and admit this loss, let the short position lose money and cut meat out, give Xiao Yu a vent, and calm his anger. With certainty, at worst, when the stock price falls, we can secretly arrange for shadow holding to buy low and buy long, and offset the loss of the short position. After all, with a market value of over 30 billion, there's huge room for future growth. Giving up the right to speak, control, and some equity is acceptable, as long as it is certain that the company's overall market value will rise. Even if the equity is reduced, the final profit may be more. At about 8:30 the next morning before the market, Xiao Yu received a call from Zhou Beichuan himself, and during the conversation, they conveyed their decision to Xiao Yu through a side note. After ending the call with Zhou Beichuan, Xiao Yu smiled and said, "It's the hook." At that time, Penghu Capital and other investors thought that Xiao Yu really wanted to vent his anger and turn the page, and the friendship boat could continue to row happily. Little did they know that Xiao Yu was aiming to completely break up from the beginning. Especially now that it was certain that Rulian Group would be there to stabilize the situation afterwards, so there was no need to worry about it. In this wave, Zhou Beichuan and his team first lost money on short orders, then on long orders, and suffered heavy losses on both ends. Finally, the restricted shares were just released, and the stock price had been broken. Today, Prism Technology opened with a daily limit, and the stock price hit a historical high of 42.43 yuan, and the market value further climbed to 36.829 billion. The second main rising wave has doubled after 4 consecutive daily limits in 4 days. Since the first daily limit in May, the cumulative increase has reached plus 929.85%, which is already the demon stock with the largest increase this year. If it starts from the historical lowest price of 3.86 yuan, the cumulative increase is plus 999.22%, which is a tenfold increase. The stockholders also worship it. As time goes by, the lunch break ends, and the funds in the market find that there is no movement on the news today, and some people soon become alert. It has to be said that the funds participating in the game are all very cunning. Those who are not cunning have been eliminated by the market. Except for the novice and the stockholders with a strong gambling nature, those who are still active in the market are more cunning than one another. They shout that their families should hold on and not run away, but they run faster than rabbits. At 1311, the limit of Prism Technology stock price rose, and the funds for blocking orders suddenly began to decrease significantly. Penghu Capital's short position smashed a large short order not to continue shorting, but to blow up the limit and trigger profit-taking, so that they could close their positions. Sure enough, seeing the big order smashing the market, the holders began to follow suit and rush to run, so that the profits could be pocketed, and the limit was blown up and plunged. However, the decline stopped after diving 10 points, because the short orders of Penghu Capital and several other institutions were closing their positions. They had bought the stocks through margin trading and smashed them out before, and now they bought them back at double the price and returned them, which meant they would lose twice the money. If they hadn't made a lot of money from the short orders before, they would have been liquidated. Now Zhou Beichuan and his friends think they have already negotiated with Xiao Yu on the benefits, so they have to admit the loss, so there is nothing to say. As time goes by, various funds see that this stock has such a strong carrying capacity, and many funds choose to take a high look. At the end of the trading day, seeing that the profit-making funds are almost out, some hot money comes in to take over. At the end of the trading day, Prism Technology's divergence turned to consensus, and the stock price closed at the upper limit again. Today, this D-board released a huge amount of volume, with a total turnover of 6.537 billion yuan, refreshing the largest single-day turnover in the history of the stock, and the turnover rate also reached an astonishing 61.25%. After the closing, in fact, many people were waiting for news, but they didn't wait for the news. The next day, Thursday, July 15th, Prism Technology opened higher by plus 19.02% today, almost close to the upper limit. Many stockholders were a little uneasy when they saw the bidding result. Why didn't it open directly at the upper limit when it was close to the upper limit? Some stockholders felt something was wrong, and the opening price was very interesting. 50.50 yuan is the opening price. Some main players have a bad taste, and like to make some special numbers at the top, such as a pear top or a leopard top. Prism Technology opened at 50.50 yuan today, which feels like a pear top. After the opening, the stock price plunged directly, and it was a large-scale plunge. In less than a minute, it smashed 20 points, and the stock price turned green and fell directly. At the same time, Xiao Yu was also in Prism Technology today. Yunshu came to the chairman's office. When Xiao Yu saw her coming, he immediately took out a document from the folder and handed it to her. Disclose this news at noon. After opening the document and taking a look, Yunshu flashed a hint of surprise. She looked up at Xiao Yu in confusion, and finally nodded hesitantly. Okay, at 12 noon, half an hour after the morning market closed, an announcement issued by Prism Technology scared all the funds that were gambling in the market. Prism Technology released an announcement. The company is planning a major asset reorganization. The audit and evaluation of this transaction have not been completed, and the specific transaction price has not been determined. This reorganization still needs to go through the necessary internal decision-making procedures and must be approved by the competent regulatory authorities before it can be officially implemented. There is uncertainty as to whether it can be successfully implemented. Investors are kindly requested to pay attention to the risks of secondary market transactions, pay full attention to the actual operating conditions of the company, make rational decisions, and invest prudently. Xiao Yu arranged to issue such an announcement at this time point, firstly to let Penghu Capital and several other investors close their short positions, and at the same time to drive down the stock price a little, inducing them to secretly absorb funds and go long, and then come up with a big one, directly welding the car door shut. As soon as this announcement came out, the market immediately caused panic, and funds began to flee in large numbers. Those who were still in the pattern and had not sold could no longer move after seeing this announcement, and they all rushed to quickly place orders and apply for a run. Family members, run. Those who dared to rush today are really warriors. They are dumbfounded now. The high position released an epic huge volume, 50.50 pairs of tops. This time the universe top is beyond doubt. The first board rose from 4.12 to 50.50. The cumulative surge plus 1125.72, according to the lowest point of 3.86, it has soared plus 1208.29%. I just want to say that the overnight orders should be placed at the limit down to rush to sell blood. This year's first 10-fold stock, to be exact, more than 12 times. Today should be the graduation photo. Take a group photo, and see you next monster stock. It seems that the family members have taken on everything again, covering face and laughing and crying JPG, MR. Xiao, I am very happy that you can issue an announcement, but I don't like the announcement you issued. Let's see who runs faster in the afternoon opening. Shiba Inu JPG, I am convinced. In the morning, everyone worshipped, and now everyone is shorting. What is there to panic about? It's just a normal announcement. The boss of the two companies is the same person. How could a restructuring fail? Hold on firmly, optimistic about the stock price breaking 100, wash it out healthier, wash out the unsteady chips. Let me translate the words above. Don't run, let me run first. Manually funny. Chapter 29. Return to the Blue Star World. In the afternoon, the share price of Prism Technology suddenly plunged and turned green at the moment of opening, and it fell 27 points in a straight line, and exploded to 34.18 yuan, with a drop of minus 19.44%, almost hitting the limit down, and walked out of the ceiling and floor. However, it was pulled up in a few minutes, and the red market rose by 5 percentage points. This was the result of several shorts such as Penghu Capital closing their positions. In addition, there were indeed people who used the leading first yin tactics and bet on a rebound tomorrow. There are also many people who firmly believe that the reorganization can be successful. After all, the bosses of Linghan New Materials and Prism Technology are both Xiao Yu. However, at the end of the trading day, the stock price continued to weaken, and finally turned green and accelerated downward to close down minus 10.32%, reporting a price of 38.05 yuan. And the market value fell back to 33.027 billion. In the following market outlook, the share price of Prism Technology began to fluctuate and fall, and the daily fluctuations were very large. Several investment institutions of Penghu Capital were suppressing the share price, and at the same time secretly absorbed funds to buy and do more, hoping to get more low-cost chips. Investors are also waiting to see whether the merger and reorganization can be successfully implemented. There is still a lot of money in the game before the shoe lands. Xiao Yu has now completed the gambling agreement and confirmed that several Zhou Beichuan investors have been successfully fooled into jumping into the pit. The next step is to give the other party some time to increase their holdings and make more chips. It is best to go all in, then just close the door and weld it shut, and then let the stock price fall through, and kill it all. At the same time, Xiao Yu was not idle and decided to go to the Blue Star world again. The bragging of mass production of high-quality purity graphene materials has been blown out, so it is necessary to ensure that there will be enough production capacity to supply the market in the future. Xiao Yu obviously also urgently needs to establish a stable supply channel in the Blue Star world and gain a firm foothold there. This is related to the future cross-border of other black technologies to the Earth, including the cross-border of products on the Earth to the Blue Star. Blue Star, Fengquan City, Zhongzhou Heavenly Kingdom. There is a huge difference in the relative time flow rate of the two worlds, which is much more convenient for me. Xiao Yu stepped through the teleportation stargate and appeared in the Villa Boat in Fengquan City. It has been more than 3 months since I last left Blue Star and returned to Earth, but because of the relative time flow rate difference, it has only been about 4 or 5 hours since I last left Blue Star. Similarly, when Xiao Yu came to Blue Star, the time flow rate on Earth slowed down by 500 times. After staying on Blue Star for a few months and returning to Earth, only a few hours have passed on Earth. There is no need to worry that staying on Blue Star for too long will cause the time on Earth to be too long, otherwise the housekeeper Qin Yu will definitely call the police when he sees the owner suddenly disappear for a long time. At this moment, Xiao Yu sat alone in the living room without saying a word, thinking about how to unfold the affairs on Blue Star. After careful consideration, Xiao Yu decided to set up a company on Blue Star first. This site also needs to develop, and it is definitely not advisable to fight alone. Set up a company here in Fengquan City, and it is better to set up one in Xianju City, Xiao Yu murmured to himself and nodded with self-affirmation. Setting up a company in Xianju City is to create connections in the capital circle of the Kingdom of Heaven, so as to facilitate dealing with people on Blue Star. That's it, Xiao Yu planned and quickly determined the general idea. He would first set up a company in Fengquan City, wait for the company to start running, and then go to Xianju City. Xiao Yu turned on the smart holographic bracelet to project a holographic display panel in front of him, and checked 2 anonymous bank accounts. The balance of the 2 accounts totaled more than 80 million star yuan. Well, the funds should be enough. Xiao Yu looked at the balance. More than 80 million star yuan was enough to set up a company, so he didn't have to continue to work hard to run the business in person. Wait for the company to be established, recruit a group of employees, and then let them run the business. In the future, Xiao Yu only needs to transport various food products from the Earth to the warehouse on Blue Star, and then let the company's employees go to market and run the business, and sell the products to generate income. After finalizing the general direction and considering the details, Xiao Yu left his private residence on the same day and went out to register and establish a company. Get the company up and running as soon as possible, then recruit people, and end the embarrassing situation of being alone on Blue Star. As for the name of the company, Xiao Yu still decided to name the company Prism, that is, Prism Company, and people on Blue Star would not think there was anything special about these 2 words. After applying for the registration of Prism Company, Xiao Yu rented a floor of a business office building in the city as the company's office space while waiting for approval. The company was approved smoothly within 2 Blue Star working days, and all the procedures were completed smoothly. The company registered by Xiao Yu on Blue Star is a trade enterprise, which can engage in the sales of various commodities, as well as the import and export of goods, technology import and export, and agency import and export business. In the days to come, the main thing is to recruit people for the company, and only with people can various matters be rolled out. The recruitment information has been released, and the next step is to wait for job seekers to come and apply. Xiao Yu plans to recruit 6 people personally, the general manager of the company, and then the heads of the operations, finance, personnel and marketing departments. After finalizing the personnel of these important departments, Xiao Yu will make decisions on the following matters, and then hand them over to these people for execution. They will naturally build the company from scratch according to the boss's requirements. In addition, Xiao Yu will personally recruit an assistant and secretary who will be directly responsible to him. The company's venue has been settled, but it has not been redecorated and arranged. Xiao Yu does not plan to deal with these trivial matters by himself. He will wait until the general manager is recruited and let him take care of these matters. As the boss, he will mainly make decisions. The next afternoon, Xiao Yu rented an additional storefront in Fengquan City as the company's temporary office. He stayed here alone, waiting for the arrival of applicants. The recruitment information has been released. Blue Star Prism Company is now in a state where Xiao Yu is a commander without troops. He can only spend some time patiently on Blue Star and cannot go back to Earth to wait. Because there is a huge relative time flow difference between the two worlds, if you return to Earth, the time flow on Blue Star is 500 times slower than that on Earth. After spending a few months on Earth and returning to Blue Star, the time here has only just passed a few hours. At this time, the relative speed difference between the two worlds is actually quite troublesome, but there is no way around it. There are pros and cons, but for Xiao Yu, the pros outweigh the cons at this moment. Xiao Yu was alone in the office drinking tea and had nothing to do, so he opened a holographic projection panel to browse the Blue Star internet and learn more about some of the cultural history of Blue Star. Chapter 30. I was so shocked that I broke out in a cold sweat. Xiao Yu is now more curious about why the atmosphere of Blue Star has become what it is today. After a while, he entered the keyword historical changes in the atmosphere of Blue Star on the search engine, and soon a lot of relevant information appeared. Selecting a historical narrative article from it, Xiao Yu directly clicked to enter the page. More than 100 years ago, an extremely deadly pathogen that specifically attacks chloroplasts appeared on Blue Star and swept the plants of the entire planet, causing an irreversible ecological collapse. Xiao Yu read the content of the article with a surprised look on his face, and then continued to read. According to the description in the article, this extreme pathogen killed all the plants and algae in the ocean, and then spread to the land, leaving no grass wherever it went. All plants have chloroplasts. Without chloroplasts, photosynthesis cannot occur, and plants will die. The natural world is a whole. If one link is destroyed, it will trigger a serious chain reaction. Plants are producers in the ecosystem and support the energy flow of the entire ecosystem. The death of plants leads to the starvation of animals that feed on plants, and then the population gradually dies out and becomes extinct, which in turn leads to the starvation of carnivores due to lack of prey, and the species gradually dies out and becomes extinct, and the entire ecosystem falls into irreversible collapse from bottom to top. What is more deadly is that the progress of the disaster is exponential. The death of plants has led to less and less oxygen on the blue planet. In fact, oxygen is widely present on the blue planet. Carbon dioxide, water and various minerals all contain oxygen. But until the organic matter is transformed, humans and animals cannot use these oxygen elements. Combustion, corrosion, and the metabolic activities of life are constantly consuming oxygen in the atmosphere of the blue planet. To make matters worse, while oxygen is only decreasing and not increasing, carbon dioxide is only increasing and not decreasing. Oxygen combines with carbon in the human body to produce carbon dioxide, while releasing energy. When grass and wood burn, oxygen combines with carbon and wood to produce carbon dioxide. This reaction also occurs when plants rot, and the scale is extremely large. The chloroplasts in plants use sunlight to decompose carbon dioxide into carbon and oxygen. The oxygen will return to the atmosphere, and the carbon will be integrated into carbohydrates by the plants to provide energy for growth, so that the entire ecosystem can achieve a cyclic dynamic balance. However, as the chloroplasts of plants are destroyed by extreme pathogens, photosynthesis ends with the death of plants. No new oxygen is produced in the nature of the blue star, but breathing, burning, and corruption continue, and the scale continues to expand and deteriorate, and oxygen will continue to be consumed. Most of the decaying materials on land are completed in about half a century, and the total oxygen consumed actually accounts for less than 1% of the oxygen content in the atmosphere of the blue star. However, the decaying materials deposited on the seabed for hundreds of millions of years are more than 10 times that of the land, or even more, and will be brought to the surface of the planet. The blue star and the flame star form a binary star system and are tidally locked to each other. The flame star, which is larger than the blue star, exerts a huge tidal force on the blue star. Coupled with the tidal force exerted by the star orbiting around it, the oceans of the blue star will periodically flip over the ocean currents, and it will last for 3 cycles a year. This is what makes the surface seawater of the blue planet sink to the bottom, and the seawater on the seabed is brought to the surface, and at the same time, the organic carbon deposited on the seabed is brought to the surface of the planet. In the past, the land plants on the blue planet, including the algae in the ocean, would consume these carbon dioxide to form a dynamic balance, but the extinction of plants broke the balance, causing the content of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere to continue to rise, reaching a maximum concentration of 1.90%. The actual concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere of the blue planet is now about 1.89%, but it is still 46 times the carbon dioxide content in the Earth's atmosphere. So that's why the atmospheric environment of the blue planet has changed dramatically. Xiao Yu nodded to himself as if he had suddenly realized something, but then he suddenly broke out in a cold sweat, and he quickly closed the web page and searched for relevant information about that extreme pathogen. Because he suddenly realized that he had traveled back and forth between the blue planet and the Earth several times, and he had never done any isolation and disinfection. Xiao Yu's heart sank, and he was even a little terrified. If he accidentally brought an extreme pathogen from Blue Star that specifically attacks plant chloroplasts to Earth without knowing it, once it spread on Earth, the consequences would be disastrous. It was a close call. Fortunately, this pathogen has disappeared on Blue Star. After looking through the relevant information for several hours, Xiao Yu breathed a sigh of relief. He was really scared just now. Xiao Yu decided that when he traveled between the two worlds in the future, he would still take isolation measures, including disinfecting and inactivating all products from Blue Star to Earth, so as not to bring some unclean things to Earth. It's better to be safe than sorry. Xiao Yu calmed down and continued to learn more about the humanities and history of Blue Star. As he got to know more, Xiao Yu couldn't help but be moved. He didn't expect that the human civilization in the world of Blue Star had such a tragic past. After the great ecological collapse of Blue Star, a global food crisis broke out, becoming the last straw that broke the camel's back for the human civilization order of Blue Star. Hunger can bring the most primitive fear to people. Civilization and order completely collapsed, which lasted for 30 years. In these 30 years, the global population of Blue Star World dropped sharply from the peak of 9.7 billion to the lowest estimate of only 2.8 billion, a decrease of 6.9 billion people. In fact, the death toll in the past 30 years exceeded 7.2 billion, because the 2.8 billion people who survived included newborns in these 30 years. In the first 10 years of the great ecological collapse, the population decline of Blue Star was not so exaggerated, because the food stock was supporting it at this time, and the order did not collapse. But in the second decade, it could no longer hold it back, and a complete food crisis broke out. The civilization order completely collapsed. And the global population collapsed precipitously in just 20 years. The world of Blue Star entered the era of cannibalism, which is cannibalism in the physical sense, because everything that can be eaten has been eaten up, and food can no longer be produced, so it is inevitable to enter the extremely dark and terrifying stage of cannibalism. In that era, the only way to survive was to completely abandon humanity and transform into a human-shaped beast. When Xiao Yu saw this section of the human history of the Blue Star world, he couldn't help but feel a sense of shock. What a picture of hell on Earth. Cannibalism also led to large-scale genetic prion gene mutations, causing widespread death and plague. This series of chain reaction disasters caused the population of the Blue Star world to drop sharply from nearly 10 billion to less than 3 billion in just 20 to 30 years. Today's Blue Star human civilization characterizes those 30 years as the Dark Wasteland Age, and the turning point that ended this dark age was that of Blue Star humans at that time successfully broke through the technology of artificially synthesizing starch using carbon dioxide and achieved industrial mass production. It was this technological breakthrough that gradually alleviated the food crisis and gradually ended the dark age of cannibalism. Chapter 31, Absolutely Artificial Scarcity. When Xiao Yu read to this point, he opened another page to search for the current global population of the Blue Star world. The data showed that the current global population is about 3.35 billion. After so many years, it has only recovered to about one-third of the historical population peak. Xiao Yu couldn't help but sigh, then closed the page and continued to browse the humanities and history content. The emergence of artificial synthetic starch has ended the dark wasteland era of the Blue Star humans, and then entered the so-called post-wasteland era for 40 years. During this period, the environment of the Blue Star continued to deteriorate, forcing the surviving people to change and adapt to the new environment, and their lifestyles have also changed dramatically. The biggest change is that because of the sharp rise in the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the air cannot be breathed directly. Wearing a breathing mask on the head and a compressed air bag on the waist has become a must-have item for travel, and this lifestyle has continued to this day. In addition, the structure of man-made buildings has also undergone tremendous changes. The house can be completely isolated from the outside air, and the air emitted indoors is industrially purified air. Because the house is isolated from the outside world, the breathing mask can be taken off indoors. But from then on, breathing air is no longer free, and you need to spend money to buy it. At this moment, Xiao Yu was not wearing a breathing mask. His office was indoors. This was because of the unique product of the cities in the contemporary Blue Star world, air pipelines. Every household in Fenquin City where Xiao Yu was located was connected to an air pipeline, which was similar to the urban household gas pipelines on Earth, except that the gas on Earth was natural gas or coal gas, while the air pipelines on Blue Star were purified air for people to breathe. Therefore, people living on Blue Star had to spend money to buy air to breathe, which was an absolute rigid expenditure. If the air was cut off, they would really suffocate to death. In big cities, there were air pipelines that could be connected to every household, but in some small towns and small settlements, there were no such convenient conditions. Generally, compressed air tanks were purchased at the trading market, which was similar to the gas tanks on Earth, except that they were filled with air for people to breathe. The post-wasteland era that lasted for 40 years was still a chaotic world. Various forces rose up one after another, grabbing territory, plundering resources, and plundering population. Weak forces were swallowed up by powerful forces. This was also an era of competition among the heroes. A new order was born in such a chaotic world, and the country, order, and civilization gradually returned. Oh, so that's how it is. This so-called Kingdom of Heaven was established in such a background and successfully entered Hongzhou. Xiao Yu seemed to have suddenly realized that the Kingdom of Heaven has been established for half a century. After reading this article, Xiao Yu pondered for a while and said to himself in confusion, "This Kingdom of Heaven has been established for half a century, but it can't let the people under its rule achieve food freedom. There must be a big problem here. It is definitely artificially created food scarcity." Xiao Yu had such speculation before, and now he is more and more certain. If it is not the case, there is no reason for food products related to eating to be so expensive. The Blue Star world mastered the industrial mass production of artificial starch technology 90 years ago. The power of industry is terrifying. Xiao Yu is very clear about this, not to mention that the scientific and technological level and industrial capacity of Blue Star far exceed that of the Earth. In Xiao Yu's opinion, it is completely possible to fully utilize the production capacity. Not to mention the current global population of more than 3 billion, even the industrial starch required by 30 billion people can be fully supplied. In other words, at least industrial starch should be extremely cheap, but the fact Xiao Yu saw is that this artificial starch is really expensive as the staple food of the lower class. Most of the money earned by many people at the bottom is to feed their families, and then there is not much money left. After understanding, Xiao Yu also knew that the ecological collapse of Blue Star more than 100 years ago was not instantaneous, but an irreversible collapse trend. In the process of ecological collapse, the humans of Blue Star at that time launched a life spark plan, which preserved the embryos of many species, including living individuals of many species, and survived under artificial intervention and did not completely go extinct. Although a lot of it was destroyed in the turmoil in the following decades, a lot of it was still preserved. Therefore, Blue Star still has fresh foods such as fruits, vegetables, poultry, eggs and meat, which can be cultivated in a closed isolation environment to create a suitable growth environment. But in the world of Blue Star, it has become an expensive and scarce luxury. People at the bottom are reluctant to consume it several times a year. Only a few groups such as the rich or the powerful can achieve food freedom in today's era, and even eat fish and meat every day, and eat delicacies from mountains and seas until they are sick of it. As a native of Earth, Xiao Yu was shocked by the situation on Blue Star, and even found it difficult to understand, because if it were placed in his home country on Earth, the order would have been rebuilt for half a century, and there was also the technological and industrial foundation of Blue Star civilization to support it. First of all, the price of artificially synthesized starch would definitely be very cheap. Of course, this cheap price is based on the Earth's saying, "Cabbage on Blue Star is now very expensive." Secondly, even for fresh food, fruits and vegetables, they can be grown in large-scale industrial greenhouses. The technology in the Blue Star world is so advanced that Xiao Yu does not believe that the modern agricultural technology here will be more backward than that of his hometown Earth. Even if it is not possible to let everyone realize the freedom of fruits and vegetables, it will not make this kind of fresh food a luxury in the eyes of the lower class. That can only mean that all this is artificially created. excluding all impossibilities. No matter how unbelievable the rest is, it must be the truth, which is artificially created. Xiao Yu tried to further search for the reasons and underlying logic, but he did not find the answer on the internet after searching for a long time, so he stopped searching. Because he realized that it is highly likely that the truth will not be found on the open internet, on Blue Star. At this moment, a small holographic window popped up, and someone submitted a job application to Prism Company. Xiao Yu closed the messy holographic panel pages, threw away the doubts in his mind, and immediately opened the resume information submitted by the job seeker to take a look. In the following days, 7 people came to apply for the position of general manager. Xiao Yu personally interviewed them one by one, and finally selected a man named Luo Guanqi as the general manager of Prism Company. Xiao Yu offered an annual salary of 3 million star yuan plus stock option rewards. As for stock options, there are of course performance requirements. This is the company's current office. The company is just starting up. You, the general manager, will be busy next. The enterprise plan has been finalized. You have the authority to log into the company's internal general manager account and review it. Just follow the plan. Xiao Yu brought Luo Guanqi, who had just been recruited, to the office of Prism Company. I understand. Luo Guanqi looked at the office space in front of him. He definitely couldn't work there now. He needed to renovate it and purchase some office equipment. If he hadn't seen that the registered capital of Prism Company had reached 50 million star yuan, Luo Guanqi would have suspected that he had been fooled. Xiao Yu only had more than 80 million star yuan, but the company's registered capital was 50 million star yuan, which was to show its strength to the outside world. Otherwise, others would think it was a scam company or that it had no strength and no future, and it would be more difficult to recruit outstanding talents. However, although Prism Company was a startup company, it had a registered capital of 50 million star yuan right from the start. Luo Guanqi guessed that the boss Xiao Yu must not be an ordinary entrepreneur. Ordinary entrepreneurs don't have this financial strength, and when he talked to Xiao Yu, he clearly felt that this boss was definitely not starting a business for the first time. After reading the business plan, he was more convinced that Xiao Yu had run a business before. After a few minutes, Xiao Yu left after giving a few instructions, leaving the place to Luo Guanqi. His next priority was to follow the boss instructions and build the initial framework of Prism Company so that the company could get on track and run. Chapter 32, Heavenly Capital, Heavenly City. After recruiting Luo Guanqi, the general manager, Xiao Yu ended his lone commander status in the Blue Star world. Many complicated and trivial matters can be directly handed over to his subordinates for execution, and he does not need to do it himself, which is much easier. The company's business plan has been drawn up long ago, and Luo Guanqi only needs to execute it according to the requirements. Once the personnel of each department of the company are recruited, it can be officially put into operation. In the next few days, Xiao Yu personally interviewed and found a man named Zhou Gaoshiro to serve as the financial director of Prism Company, that is, the head of the company's financial department. The personnel of several key departments, such as marketing and personnel of the company, were also finalized by Xiao Yu in the following days. As for other employees, Xiao Yu does not need to interview them in person. Just finalize the heads of several important departments in person, and leave the rest to the senior management team, without having to do everything personally. However, it is worth mentioning that the recruitment of personnel for the position of Xiao Yu's assistant and secretary was not smooth. Many people came to the company to interview for this position during this period, because the salary offered was 1.45 million star yuan in option rewards. This position had such a treatment, which was definitely a high salary in Blue Star. Xiao Yu personally interviewed more than 30 people, but he was never satisfied. Because it was not just as simple as recruiting an assistant and secretary. Xiao Yu had a deeper layout. He had to cultivate his own people in Blue Star and establish a solid foundation to truly gain a foothold in this world. Generally speaking, there are 2 ways to establish a solid relationship with others. One is to establish an alliance through the consistent interest bond formed by interest exchange and interest bundling, and the other is to establish a blood relationship through marriage to achieve an alliance with consistent interests. Xiao Yu chose the most efficient and direct option, that is, marriage, and even the bond of blood relationship. As long as it is beneficial for him to gain a foothold in the Blue Star world, if necessary, Xiao Yu does not mind leaving a seat in the Blue Star world, because the relationship established by having common offspring with blood as the bond is undoubtedly more solid. Xiao Yu has been staying in the Blue Star world for a while, and has been constantly learning about this world. He has determined that the human beings in the two worlds have the same structure at the genetic level, that is, there is no problem of reproductive isolation, so he can take the path of establishing blood relations. It can be seen that Xiao Yu is not only recruiting assistants and secretaries, but also looking for objects to become his women. With this relationship, he can better and faster establish a trust foundation and cultivate his own team of confidants in the Blue Star world. Based on this special motivation, it is reasonable that it is difficult to find suitable candidates when recruiting assistants and secretaries. First of all, men must be excluded. Xiao Yu's orientation is very normal. Secondly, there are also requirements for appearance and figure. Xiao Yu also has his own aesthetics. If you can't even raise the idea of standing up after taking a look, then what's the point of talking about leaving seeds to establish a blood relationship? Finally, the ability must be passed. It can't be just a vase. At least it can be on par with Yun Shu on the Earth. 2 days later, Xiao Yu left Fenquin City alone and booked a flight ticket to Xianshan, which is the capital of the Kingdom of Heaven, Xiandu City. This city is located in Xianshan Mountain, which is suspended at an altitude of 3,000 meters. The main purpose of this trip is to go to Xiandu City and register another company locally. Is this Xiandu City? After about 3 hours of flying, Xiao Yu has already seen a corner of Xianshan through the porthole. This is a product created by artificial intervention in the technological level of Blue Star, which is based on the natural superconducting suspended mountain unique to Blue Star. Xianshan is not formed naturally, but is artificially merged by multiple suspended mountains. As Xiao Yu's plane approached, the scenery of Xianshan became clearer and clearer in Xiao Yu's vision. It hangs high above the sky, beautiful, magnificent, and magnificent, which makes people clap their hands in amazement. Looking around, the wind and clouds are rolling, and skyscrapers are standing in a sea of clouds. There are also small single-unit suspended mountains of different sizes and shapes at different spatial heights within the Xianshan Mountains. Some are high-density high-end residential areas, some are villa groups, and there are also single-unit suspended mountains with only one villa manor. The entire Xianshan Mountains presents a prosperous and auspicious atmosphere, as if it is a fairyland on Earth. There are even large exclusive hunting grounds within the Xianshan Mountains. It is also the first time that Xiao Yu has seen such lush vegetation forests in the Blue Star world. The forest coverage rate of the entire Xianshan Mountains is estimated to be about 75%. Even in the city center, many flowers, plants and trees can be seen everywhere. You can't see such a scene anywhere else. There is not a single plant in the wild. It can even be said that there are no other living things in the wild except humans. Because the atmospheric environment of the current Blue Star world has changed drastically, animals and plants cannot survive naturally in the wild. Obviously, the Xianshan Mountains are a super large closed ecosystem created entirely by manpower and powerful technical assistance. Under normal circumstances, Xiandu City is located at such a high altitude that snow and plateau reaction can form. However, in fact, there is no snow here and it will not cause plateau reaction. Obviously, this problem has been solved by scientific and technological means. The passenger plane that Xiao Yu took passed the identity verification, successfully passed through the shield barrier of Xianshan Mountain to enter Xiandu City and successfully landed at Xianshan Airport. After leaving the airport, a high-end unmanned intelligent floating motorcycle came to pick up Xiao Yu. This is the supporting service of the hotel he booked. After scanning the code to confirm the completion, Xiao Yu got on the car, and the unmanned intelligent floating motorcycle took him to the hotel. The booked hotel is a 7-star top luxury hotel, an asset of a foreign multinational hotel group. This hotel is not on the ground, but has an independent single-unit suspended mountain in the bustling area of the city center. Of course, the ground here is also relative to Xianshan Mountain. About 20 minutes later, Xiao Yu checked into the hotel. In the living room of the suite, Xiao Yu, standing next to the floor-to-ceiling window of the living room, silently looked at the scenery outside. The location of the hotel has an excellent viewing angle to enjoy the scenery of Xiandu City. Xiao Yu has already traveled through several cities in the Blue Star Kingdom. He found that the buildings in Xiandu City are different from those in other cities. For example, the windows of the houses here can be opened, but the houses do not have any ceiling function, and there is no so-called air delivery pipeline in each household. Because the entire Xianshan Mountain is protected by the shield barrier, It has formed an artificially built super-large closed independent ecosystem. Naturally, there is no need for air delivery pipelines, and the houses do not need to be built into a fully enclosed type. At most, there are some breathing masks and oxygen bags at home for emergency use, but they are basically not used because this is the capital of the Kingdom of Heaven. As long as you are in Xianshan Mountain, you can breathe air smoothly no matter where you are. The temperature and humidity air indicators indoors and outdoors are very pleasant. Even at an altitude of 3,000 meters, it is no problem to wear a short sleeve in Xianshan Mountain. Being able to build a super-suspended mountain at an altitude of 3,000 meters and locate Xiao Yu City here, in addition to the rich natural room temperature superconducting mines in the Blue Star world, a series of black technologies that are proper for the Earth must have been used to create such a shocking paradise on Earth. Chapter 33. This city is good in every way, but it's not down to earth. At this moment, Xiao Yu took advantage of the good view of the hotel to overlook the scenery of the center of Xiao Yu City. The endless flow of floating motorcycles in the city is running in the three-dimensional transportation network. Various floating vehicles are traveling at different spatial heights. It seems chaotic, but it is actually in order. The population size of Xiao Yu City has reached 50 million. In theory, there is an upper limit to the population gathering scale of a city, and it cannot expand indefinitely. One of the restrictive factors is transportation. If the population density is too high, the urban traffic will be crowded, and the traffic pressure will limit the upper limit of the size of a city. According to the situation on Earth, a supermetropolis with a population of 20 million will face huge traffic pressure. But at this moment, the Xiao Yu city that Xiao Yu saw had an urban population density that was obviously several times higher than that of the metropolis with a population of tens of millions on Earth, and the population size was reaching 50 million, but the traffic in the city was unimpeded, and there was no traffic jam at all. This is due to the developed three-dimensional transportation network. The urban traffic has been upgraded from the two-dimensional plane on the ground to the three-dimensional plane in the air to produce a supermetropolis with such a large population. The world of Blue Star has abundant natural superconducting mineral veins, which enables various transportation vehicles to detach from the ground and realize superconducting floating in the air by relying on the magnetic field of Blue Star. The birth of a three-dimensional transportation network is an inevitable product. If all kinds of transportation vehicles in Xiao Yu City can only travel on the centralized ground, the traffic of the entire city will be completely paralyzed, and the population scale of the city cannot be so large. Transportation vehicles can travel in superconducting floating air, and they can be distributed in planes of different spatial heights, and the traffic pressure in the city will drop exponentially in an instant. It is the three-dimensional transportation network that allows the population scale of the city to expand to 50 million, or even double it, and the population scale reaches 100 million, and Xiao Yu City will not have any traffic pressure. The three-dimensional transportation network distributes the floating motorcycle vehicles at different heights. The floating motorcycle vehicles with different functions have corresponding designated air routes. For example, all private cars are required to travel at one height, public vehicles are required to travel at another height, freight vehicles are required to travel at one height, and so on. The three-dimensional traffic network makes the traffic environment of Xiao Yu City extremely smooth. It seems that there are many vehicles, but they are scattered at different spatial heights. As long as you intercept one of the height surfaces, you will find that the vehicles are actually very sparse, and there is no traffic jam at all. Some crossroads do not have traffic lights at all. At this time, Xiao Yu noticed that in the distance, more than 600 meters above the city ground, a private floating motorcycle left the dedicated lane and crashed directly into a skyscraper in front. Xiao Yu thought he was about to see an air car accident with his own eyes, but the results surprised him greatly. When the floating motorcycle was about to hit the skyscraper, it seemed to encounter an invisible repulsive force that caused the motorcycle to suddenly slow down to zero, and then it was bounced a few meters away and suspended in the air without moving. It seems that the natural room temperature superconducting ore in the Blue Star world is really rich. It's too luxurious. Having a mine at home is willful. Xiao Yu was amazed and couldn't help but sigh. In the scene just seen, the skyscraper and the hovercraft seemed to be two magnets repelling each other. The hovercraft was bounced back and a collision accident was avoided. Xiao Yu, who saw this scene, speculated that all the major buildings in the city should have this anti-collision function. In the next few Blue Star days, Xiao Yu registered a company in Xiao Yu City. At the same time, He also received several resumes for secretary and assistant positions. This time, Xiao Yu took a fancy to a job seeker from the submitted resumes. At least from the resume information, it is quite in line with Xiao Yu's requirements, but the specific situation still needs to be interviewed in person to further confirm, so he directly contacted the other party to come to Xiao City for an interview. The next day, afternoon tea time, Xiao Yu stayed in the living room of the hotel suite. After a few minutes, he heard a knock on the door. He got up and went to open the door. When he opened the door, he saw a woman standing at the door. Xiao Yu saw the other party's appearance and quickly recognized that it was the job seeker who asked the other party to come to Xiao City for an interview. Xiao Yu recalled the resume information for a moment and said, "Yan Lingjun, right? I am Xiao Yu, come in." The other party entered the house. Xiao Yu closed the door and walked towards the sofa in the living room. "Sit down. This is a beautiful woman with impeccable appearance and figure, with a noble temperament, delicate features, a beautiful face, light makeup, soft hair scattered on her body, and fashionable and decent clothes." The two sat down. Xiao Yu's eyes fell on Yan Lingjun and said with a smile, "From your resume, it is very good and meets my requirements, but I still want to interview you in person and ask you some questions." Yan Lingjun nodded. "Please ask, Mr. Xiao." The next step is equivalent to the interview session. Xiao Yu asked a few questions and communicated with Yan Lingjun. During the dialogue, Xiao Yu unexpectedly found that this woman's ideological realm is very high, leaving the previous interviewees far behind. Xiao Yu was basically sure that her resume was reliable. She had an outstanding temperament, was good-looking, and had outstanding abilities. The key point was that her ideological realm exceeded Xiao Yu's expectations. If there was a shortcoming, it was that she was not born from a prominent family background, but she had reached the threshold of the elite class. But then again, if Yan Lingjun had a prominent family background, she would not have come to the newly established Prism company to apply for a job. After a long time, Xiao Yu looked at Yan Lingjun, who was sitting in front of him, and asked her with interest, "Why do I see that you don't seem to be very interested in the city in the sky? Don't you like this city in the sky?" Hearing this, Yan Lingjun did not answer, but asked Xiao Yu, "Mr. Xiao, do you like this city?" Xiao Yu sat back on the sofa with his back leaning back and crossed his legs. He retracted his gaze and pondered for a while, then said to himself, "There is no doubt that this city of heaven is worthy of the reputation of fairyland on earth, but frankly speaking, I personally don't like it very much. I even prefer to stay in Fenquin City." This made Yan Lingjun look surprised, and he couldn't help but say doubtfully, "Countless people yearn for Xianshan, but Mr. Xiao actually doesn't like it here." Xiao Yu turned to look at Yan Lingjun and said, "This city is good in every way, but it is not down to earth. It stands high above the clouds and is unattainable. It looks down on all living beings with indifference. There is auspicious light and auspicious mist above the Xianshan mountains, and the world is difficult and people's livelihood is difficult below the Xianshan mountains." This huge sense of tearing makes people uncomfortable. He didn't know that when he said this, Yan Lingjun was so surprised that she once doubted Xiao Yu's identity. Is he a revolutionary comrade who is lurking in the kingdom of heaven like himself and engaging in underground activities? Xiao Yu didn't know at all that the beautiful woman who came to apply for the job was actually a rebel in the kingdom of heaven. She was a member of the Red Tide organization and a spy lurking in the kingdom of heaven as a member of the armed revolutionary organization. It was not accidental that Yan Lingjun could appear in front of Xiao Yu. There was a key person, and Xiao Yu was actually not unfamiliar with him. This person was Liu Shiji, the boss of Qingyang Town. He was also a member of the Red Tide organization and an underground contact person lurking in Qingyang Town. It was Liu Shiji who sent the intelligence to the higher-level organization that led to Yan Lingjun's application. The Red Tide organization's revolutionary army was currently in short supply of food. In fact, it was not just food that was in short supply, but also many other supplies, including weapons and equipment. Boss Liu realized that Xiao Yu could get a lot of food and supplies, and anyone dared to sell it, so he sent this intelligence to his superiors. The main purpose of Yan Lingjun approaching Xiao Yu was to expand new ways for the Red Tide organization to obtain food and supplies. Chapter 34, This is not a natural disaster, it is a man-made disaster. Mr. Xiao, you are a rich man, an elite of the Heavenly Kingdom, and a vested beneficiary of the Heavenly Kingdom's governance system. What you said is equivalent to betraying your own class. Be careful that others may label you a red bandit. At this moment, Yan Lingjun looked at Xiao Yu with a smile on his face and said in a joking tone. She would never have thought that Xiao Yu was not a native of Blue Star at all, and Xiao Yu couldn't help laughing when he heard this. I dare not wear this hat of yours. After a while, Xiao Yu looked at her and smiled. I am interviewing you now, and you haven't answered the question I asked you yet. Yan Lingjun thought about it and organized his words in his mind, then looked up at Xiao Yu and replied, as President Xiao said just now, there are auspicious light and magnificent scenery above the Xianshan Mountains, and the world is difficult and people's lives are difficult under the Xianshan Mountains. I feel the same as you. Having said that, Yan Lingjun tilted his head slightly to look at the scenery outside the floor-to-ceiling window and sighed leisurely. The kingdom of heaven is not a kingdom of heaven standing in a peaceful and prosperous age, but a kingdom standing in a difficult world and a map of hell. These words surprised Xiao Yu, as he didn't know enough about the underlying operating logic of the kingdom of heaven. Xiao Yu immediately pretended to be interested and said, you said I would be labeled a red bandit. I think you are more like a red bandit. Yan Lingjun was very calm and said with a smile, if you say so, Mr. Xiao, I dare not express my opinion carelessly, and I dare not wear this hat. Xiao Yu did not know that his unintentional joke was really right. Yan Lingjun was a member of the Red Tide organization and was engaged in espionage. At this moment, Xiao Yu looked at her and asked, you said that the kingdom of heaven is a kingdom standing in the difficult world and the map of hell. How do you see it? The two of them had their own thoughts and purposes at this moment. Xiao Yu hoped to get more information from the other party, and some information was difficult to obtain from the public network. Yan Lingjun wanted to confirm some of his guesses in his heart. In order to prevent the exposure of their identities, many revolutionary comrades engaged in espionage activities did not know each other's identities. Xiao Yu's words surprised her greatly. As a vested interest under the rule of heaven, he actually said that he didn't like Xianti City. In Yan Lingjun's opinion, Xiao Yu was denying his class. However, it was impossible to determine his position based on one side of the story. Yan Lingjun's next answer was to express his own point of view and answer Xiao Yu's question, and to see if Xiao Yu agreed, so as to judge his position. If he agreed, even if he was not a revolutionary comrade, there was still a possibility of winning him over. Yan Lingjun said slowly, if all living beings did not suffer, how could the auspicious light and auspicious mist on the Xianshan Mountains be displayed? If all living beings did not suffer, how could people desire class transition? If all living beings did not suffer, who would dedicate and maintain the wealth and privileges of the ruling elites of the kingdom of heaven? The elite groups in the kingdom of heaven know very well that the operating logic of the kingdom of heaven is to use the suffering of all living beings to lure all living beings to desire class transition, by tacitly accepting suffering and even deliberately creating suffering when necessary, so as to widen the material gap between the areas above and below the Xianshan Mountains. So the capital city of heaven on the Xianshan Mountains must be high above, and must become a paradise on earth that all living beings yearn for. The reason why the lower class people have not achieved class transition is that you have not worked hard enough, but it doesn't matter, just keep working hard, the path to upward mobility will always be open to you, the kingdom of heaven will not give up on you, and please don't give up on the kingdom of heaven either. Xiao Yu heard some obvious irony in Yan Lingjun's last sentence. The kingdom of heaven opened a so-called upward channel to allow a very small number of people to change their fate, thereby hinting to everyone, you see, some people really achieved class transition through hard work. But in fact, the kingdom of heaven did not solve the fundamental problem at all. The common people are still sinking in suffering. Instead, the kingdom of heaven itself is the root of the problem. Obviously, suffering is relative. The lives of a few ruling elites are still of high quality, but the quality of life of the lower class people has become worse, so the few ruling elites will become more superior, and the lower class people can only kneel down to the few elites who are superior. At this moment, Xiao Yu suddenly felt that he seemed to have glimpsed a corner of the iceberg of the kingdom of heaven, and some of the doubts in his heart seemed to have found answers. No wonder fruits, vegetables and other foods that are readily available on Earth are so expensive and scarce on Blue Star. No wonder the world's technological level is obviously far superior to that of the Earth, but the common people live so hard and difficult. I am afraid that it is the material gap deliberately created by the ruling elites of the kingdom of heaven. This is not a natural disaster, but a man-made disaster. At this moment, Xiao Yu was more and more certain that there was something wrong with the ruling system of the kingdom of heaven. The rule of the kingdom of heaven was based on a few people being high above. The world could only struggle to survive in the midst of suffering and kneeling. All living beings suffered from suffering. Instead of helping them escape from suffering, the ruling elites of the kingdom of heaven deliberately created suffering to make all living beings sink into it. No wonder there are many armed forces in the kingdom of heaven in revolution and rebellion, Xiao Yu thought to himself. Those rebels obviously found that there was something wrong with the ruling system of the kingdom of heaven, so they rebelled to overthrow the kingdom of heaven. Xiao Yu was very sure that the ruling elites of the kingdom of heaven must know why someone rebelled. At the same time, he also understood that the ruling elites of the kingdom of heaven would never turn the blade inward to give benefits to the lower-level living beings. They would only fight to the death to suppress the rebels and fight to the death to maintain their own ruling interests. What Yan Lingjun said just now has given the answer. Which is also the core of the contradiction. Only when all living beings under the Xianshan mountains are suffering and the material gap is widened can the auspicious light and mist above the Xianshan mountains be set off. If there is no material gap, no suffering, no exploitation, and everyone is equal, and there is no distinction between high and low, the wealth, power, prestige, and privileged treatment of the ruling elites of the kingdom of heaven cannot be demonstrated, let alone maintained. In order to maintain its own interests and rule, it will only try every means to fight to the death to launch a bloody suppression against external rebels. Obviously, the contradiction between the two sides at the class level has reached the point where it is incompatible and there is no possibility of reconciliation. Either the kingdom of heaven will completely suppress the resistance, or the rebels will successfully overthrow the kingdom of heaven. At the end, Xiao Yu looked at Yan Lingjun and smiled. The interview is over, congratulations, and welcome to join Prism Company. Yan Lingjun showed a happy face and immediately responded, thank you, Mr. Xiao, for your recognition. After a face-to-face exchange and dialogue, Yan Lingjun successfully passed Xiao Yu's interview and became his assistant and secretary. But there is still a 3-month probation period before getting a formal contract, and the salary is based on the formal contract. In fact, Yan Lingjun doesn't care how much she is paid, because she is not looking for a job at all, and Xiao Yu currently doesn't know her true identity. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35, Return to Earth, the military procurement team comes to research. I still have some personal matters to deal with here. You go back to Fenquin to report to the company and sign the contract. I will say hello to Luo Guanqi. Xiao Yu glanced at Yan Lingjun and said so. This time he came to Xiandu City to set up another company, and he must not let the members of Prism Company know. Yan Lingjun nodded, well, then I'll take my leave. Xiao Yu smiled and said, go, looking at her leisurely figure leaving. As she disappeared from his sight, Xiao Yu also retracted his gaze. For Yan Lingjun, this woman, through her resume information and the first contacts and conversation, Xiao Yu determined the plan to gain a foothold in the Blue Star world, that is, blood relationship is the core bond. However, it is still impossible to draw a final conclusion whether this woman is suitable. If it is confirmed that she is not suitable and is not conducive to the career layout in Blue Star, Xiao Yu will not waste time on her. He will decisively replace her and look for other targets. It is not to find a local beauty here to fall in love with her. In the following days, Xiao Yu stayed in Xiandu for a while, and successfully arranged things here, and then returned to Fenquin City. At the same time, during this period, Prism Company has been running smoothly under the operation of General Manager Luo Guanqi. At present, there are more than 130 formal employees, and Yan Lingjun has also signed a contract to become Xiao Yu's assistant and secretary. On the third day after returning to Fenquin City, Xiao Yu was at Prism Company. After a while, Yan Lingjun came to his office. Xiao Yu glanced at the beautiful assistant. She was wearing a professional suit, with a graceful figure, exuding a calm, elegant and confident atmosphere. Let the people below purchase a batch of graphene materials according to this list, and set up a warehouse in the city first. Xiao Yu retracted his gaze, took a paper document list from the table and handed it to the beautiful assistant. Well, I'll arrange it. Yan Lingjun took the list and nodded, turned around and went out of the office to arrange it. Xiao Yu stayed in the office for a while and then left the company and returned to his villa. Things on Blue Star have been arranged almost as planned, and the progress is very satisfactory, without any unexpected deviations. After returning to his private villa in Fenquin City, Xiao Yu opened the teleportation stargate and returned to Earth. This time, he had consciously carried out an isolation, disinfection and inactivation, and then stepped through the teleportation gate to return to Earth. When he returned to Earth again, it was only a few hours since he last left the Earth world, but for Xiao Yu himself, he had actually spent a month or two. In the following week, the share price of Prism Technology fell in a volatile market, from the historical high of 50.50 yuan to the recent low of 27.57 yuan, with a cumulative decline of -45.4%, nearly halved, and the company's market value also shrunk to 23.93 billion. There are still many shareholders waiting for the news of the reorganization to land. It is precisely because this matter has not landed yet that the company's market value can still maintain more than 20 billion. If the shoe lands, the result is that the reorganization fails, and the company's stock price will be cut in half again. If the reorganization is successful, the share price of Prism Technology will soar. For investors in the secondary market, this stock is now extremely risky and the returns are also extremely rich. Monday, July 26th. Prism Technology Headquarters, Chairman's Office. Yun Shu entered the office, his eyes fell on Xiao Yu who was sitting at the desk, and then he walked towards him slowly. There is a research team claiming to be from a certain rear-end support procurement department of the military. They have now arrived at our company. The person in charge of the team asked to meet with you to learn about some things about high-purity graphene materials. In person, military? Xiao Yu couldn't help but flash a flash of surprise when he heard it, but it was unexpected, but also reasonable. Graphene materials are also widely used in the military field. Due to their lightweight and high strength, they are widely used in the lightweight design of military equipment. For example, graphene-based composite materials are used in equipment such as fighter jets, tanks, and warships to improve their mobility and flexibility. There are also applications of high-performance armor materials, such as individual bulletproof vests and vehicle armor. Graphene materials can quickly disperse impact forces and have high energy absorption capacity, which is more than 10 times that of steel and twice that of Kevlar fibers. Its excellent optical, magnetic and mechanical properties make it also very potential in sensor technology and can be used in the fields of monitoring and reconnaissance. It can also be used to make coatings and infrared stealth coatings for stealth fighters, which can absorb radar waves and change the wavelength of light to achieve military camouflage, etc. Xiao Yu put down his work and went to receive the military research team. The middle-aged man in charge of the team was called Ying Weeping. Xiao Yu quickly confirmed that the other party was sent by the military to conduct an investigation and research. After staying at Prism Technology for 10 minutes, Xiao Yu took Ying Weeping and others to Linghan New Materials Company. Both companies are in Linsao City, not far apart, and can be reached in 10 minutes on foot. Linghan New Materials Company, production base. The product line has been built, and the company does not need to seek capital financing and is not short of money, because it has been dealing in gold before. Of course, it is a gold mine in Africa, and it belongs to Linghan New Materials Company. At this moment, Xiao Yu took Ying Weeping and his party into a clean room. Everyone was wearing clean clothes, and some professionals in the field of graphene also came to the inspection team. Your company's preparation technology level is quite high. I didn't expect that it can achieve mass production while ensuring such high quality and ultra-high purity. It's incredible, the leading expert gave the conclusion after a personal appraisal with the equipment. Xiao Yu on the side smiled and said nothing. At this time, the graphene materials shown to them, except for Xiao Yu, they didn't know that the materials were made by a civilization that was hundreds of years ahead of the human technology on Earth. Although this material has been classified as low-end industrial manufacturing on Blue Star, it is still a new material with high technological content in the cutting-edge field on Earth. Many experts present were amazed and very curious about what preparation principles Xiao Yu used to achieve mass production. However, they didn't ask about this issue, because they knew that they would not get an answer even if they asked. This kind of thing involving core technology is impossible for the company to disclose to outsiders. After a moment, the team leader Ying Weeping looked at Xiao Yu and asked, Mr. Xiao, what is your company's current production capacity? Hearing this, Xiao Yu quickly calculated in his mind and then replied, With the current production capacity, the combined annual output should be 2,000 tons. For this kind of high-purity scientific research-grade graphene, its annual production capacity can reach 100 tons to 150 tons. What did you say? For this kind of experimental and scientific research-grade graphene material, can you achieve an annual production capacity of hundreds of tons? One of the experts was suddenly shocked when he heard the numbers Xiao Yu just reported. The numbers Xiao Yu reported made them all uneasy. You should know that the global comprehensive production of graphene materials last year was only about 20,000 tons, and the high-quality ones were just over 100 tons. Wow, Linghan New Materials can achieve a comprehensive annual output of 2,000 tons, and one company is equivalent to 1/10 of the global production capacity last year. What shocked them the most was that Linghan New Materials could actually achieve an annual production capacity of 100 tons of scientific research-grade ultra-high-quality purity single-layer graphene materials. This production capacity is directly surpassing the global production capacity of a single company, and the key is that the purity quality is still super high-end. Chapter 36, Cost is almost zero, making a profit no matter what. When Xiao Yu was creating the product line, he also distinguished the preparation of single-layer, double-layer, and three-layer or more multi-layer graphene materials according to different purities and qualities. The price span is extremely large due to the different levels, qualities and purities of the materials. The ultra-high-quality ones are sold by gram, while the industrial-grade ones can be sold as cheaply as by kilogram. The high-quality scientific research-grade single-layer graphene on the market has a very large price range due to its rarity and unique properties, ranging from 1,000 yuan to 8,000 yuan per gram, which undoubtedly makes it more expensive than gold in some application scenarios. At this time, the graphene material that Xiao Yu showed to the inspection team was ultra-high purity single-layer graphene, with a purity of 5 nines after the decimal point, which is a top-level product in the scientific research grade. There is nothing better on the market on Earth, and this quality purity is not the limit of Blue Star. Xiao Yu did not go all in right away. The highest purity on Blue Star has reached the level of 9 nines after the decimal point, which is 4 orders of magnitude different from it. That is to say, the purity of the 99s after the decimal point is still 10,000 times higher than the purity of the 59s now. The 99s after the decimal point is basically pure. Even if the 59s are brought to the Earth, due to its rarity and unique properties, 1 gram is sold for tens of thousands of yuan, and it is definitely in short supply. The price of graphene materials is extremely disparate. High-quality products like this are sold for thousands or tens of thousands of yuan, but they are still calculated by grams. The price of conventional industrial-grade multi-layer graphene has dropped sharply, with the price per kilogram ranging from 500 yuan to 1,200 yuan. The price per gram is between 0.5 yuan and 1.2 yuan. High-quality graphene materials have huge applications in many fields such as intelligent equipment, aerospace, energy storage, and environmental governance. They are now widely used in electronic devices, biosensors, energy storage materials, and other fields. They are definitely important strategic new materials. The development of these high-end industries has a strong demand for graphene materials, but the high cost of extracting and preparing from graphite leads to high prices, and it is also known as black gold. Xiao Yu then showed the delegation other graphene materials of different qualities, such as the 99.5% purity that can be achieved on the market, and 99.999%, single layer and double layer. Ying Weiping's inspection this time was much better than expected. At first, they thought that Linghan New Materials Company's production capacity exceeded 300 tons, which was very good. They didn't expect that the comprehensive production capacity would reach 2,000 tons, and they never expected that the experimental-grade ultra-high-quality purity single-layer graphene material could reach an annual production capacity of 100 tons. Mr. Xiao, has the market pricing of these products produced by your company been determined? Ying Weiping asked. At this moment, he and Xiao Yu had come to a reception room to talk. The market inquiry has not been done yet, but for our flagship products, according to the market situation, it is no problem to sell them at 8,000 to 15,000 yuan per gram. Xiao Yu said in an orderly manner. There is nothing wrong with this. The quality is there, it is exclusively provided, and the technology is monopolized. The key is that there is no market for it. You may not be able to buy it with money. This is the unparalleled competitiveness. At this time, Xiao Yu's brain was also thinking quickly. The cost of moving graphene from Blue Star to Earth is almost zero. It is true that high-tech products have high added value, but there is a great potential risk if the profit margin is too exaggerated. Food is scarce and expensive on Blue Star. The profit margin from Earth is 1,000 times. It is converted into star yuan to purchase graphene materials and move them back to Earth. The profit margin is 1,000,000 times, and there is no tariff. Xiao Yu clearly realized that he must find a way to suppress the profit margin. It can't be too shocking. No matter how high the value and how profitable the monopoly technology is, it can't achieve a profit margin of 1,000,000 times. If this matter is not taken seriously, it will definitely cause big trouble in the future, because this profit margin is seriously contrary to common sense. The absolute profit value can be very large, and it is no problem to make a net profit of tens of billions or hundreds of billions, but the net profit margin must be suppressed. Obviously, the best solution is to raise the company's overall operating costs. Other companies are trying to reduce their operating costs and expand their profit margins, but Xiao Yu is facing the opposite situation. He needs to raise his operating costs, and the profit margin will naturally come down, so that the company's overall profit statement can be rationalized, so that it is not too evil to go against common sense. Xiao Yu's strategy is to increase the company's operating costs through three aspects. The first is to invest in research and development on a large scale in the name of technology research and development. High-tech research and development is synonymous with gold-eating beasts, and it is very expensive to engage in cutting-edge technology. The second is to increase the wages of company employees, and the third is to continue to recruit employees on a large scale to increase the company's labor and capital costs. In this way, the company's profit margin can be lowered, and the profit statement will become normal. At this moment, Xiao Yu thought of a new way to lower the profit margin for rationalization. First, anchor a higher number and call it the production cost, and then sell it to the military at a price lower than this number, claiming to be selling at a loss, but in fact it is still making a lot of money, and the price difference in the middle can be included in the loss statement. Isn't it reflected in the company's financial report that the operating cost has been raised, and the book data is easy to do? If other business owners knew about this, they would be so angry that they would vomit blood, and even feel that their worldview is about to collapse. How could a company desperately want to raise operating costs? But the situation Xiao Yu is facing now is so counterintuitive. In order not to be discovered by the outside world and to reasonably integrate into it, he has to raise operating costs in the opposite direction. The current best quality graphene material under the company will not be priced at more than 1,000 yuan per gram in the civilian market. I have said in public before that I will reduce the price to less than 1,000 yuan, and I can't break my promise. Xiao Yu looked at Ying weeping and said calmly and confidently. After a pause, Xiao Yu continued without blushing or beating his heart, as for military procurement, I am willing to offer a discount. As long as the profits in the civilian market can support it, it is not a problem to lower the price of supply to the military to less than 100 yuan. Xiao Yu is actually very worried that the military may order Linghan New Materials Company to supply all its production capacity to the military exclusively because of the large demand, and prohibit sales in the civilian market. If this situation really happens, it will be a big trouble. Not only will it be difficult to do the accounts, but the problem of pressure profit margin will also increase the difficulty significantly. With such a plan, the military has no reason to prohibit Linghan New Materials from selling to the civilian market. Some quotas must be allocated to the company to make money in the civilian market at a higher price than the military's purchase price, so as to make up for the loss of selling to the military. This loss should be put in quotation marks. In the eyes of outsiders, the products sold to the military are sold at a discount price, but in fact they are still making a lot of money, but there is a reasonable loss amount, which can be used to lower the overall profit margin of the company. Ying weeping was also surprised to hear what Xiao Yu said. According to the figures he gave, the military's purchase price is 10 times cheaper than the civilian market price. There is no need to do that. If you let your company sell at a loss, wouldn't it hinder the development of our country's technology if it goes bankrupt? The military doesn't need this money, Ying weeping said so. If he knew the actual situation, he would never say so, because there is no loss at all. Even if the quotation is down to single digits, it is still a big profit. Xiao Yu said in an orderly manner, Director Ying, this is what I think. We sell commercial orders at market prices because the profit is high enough. I am confident in the competitiveness of our products. We sell military orders at a loss 10 times cheaper. Although we lose money, We can make up for it with a profit from the civilian market. Our company will definitely make a profit overall, and we will not lose money. At this moment, Xiao Yu thought that he could not miss such an opportunity to easily raise the operating costs of the enterprise and lower the profit margin. Xiao Yu added without blushing or beating his heart, "There is no end to making money. It is our duty to contribute to the national defense of the motherland." All this, Ying Weeping was instantly confused by him. This was the first time he encountered such a situation. He didn't know whether to say that Xiao Yu was too conscious or too eager to make progress. The quotation to the military was 10 times cheaper than the price in the civilian market. When Ying Weeping heard this number, it seemed as if he heard Comrade Xiao Yu's desire for progress. Is this a price? It is a ladder to progress. Chapter 37, Zhou Beichuan's Catastrophic Misjudgment. Ying Weeping, who had been holding it in for a long time, said, "Mr. Xiao, are you sure that there will be no problems with your company's operations if you do this? You have to understand that the country will not take advantage of you. The price difference of 10 times from the civilian market may breed termites." Xiao Yu said with certainty, "There will be no problem. The profit margin of the civilian market is very high. It is true that the parts sold to the military will lose money, but it does not mean that the company's overall business situation will lose money. For example, scientific research-grade graphene is priced at 999 yuan per gram, which is more than 10 times cheaper than other payers. The quality is better than theirs. No competitor in the civilian market can beat it." Then, Xiao Yu added, "The path of dual use of military and civilian products has been proven to be extremely correct. The profit of military products is about 5%. Without national subsidies, it is difficult for enterprises to have enough funds to invest in research and development. However, relying on the huge civilian market, the profit of products is determined by the market, which can be 50% or even 500%. The profit margin can earn enough profit to support the company's technological research and development." And finally feedback to the military industry, Director Ying sighed in his heart, "Comrade Xiao Yu really wants to make progress." The two sides further communicated for 10 minutes, and Ying Weeping said goodbye and left. He came here for inspection and research. His superiors did not ask him to place a purchase order directly. It would definitely not be so fast. He needed to go back and report the situation before deciding whether to place an order and how much to purchase. However, before leaving, Ying Weeping gave Xiao Yu an expectation that if the military came to place an order, it might take about 65% to 70% of Linghan New Materials' current production capacity. Xiao Yu naturally said that there was no problem with this. No matter what, it was a blood profit, so naturally he would not have any opinions. Moreover, it was completely enough to provide about 30% of the production capacity to the civilian market. The most profitable part was definitely the part with the best quality and purity. The planned annual production capacity was 150 tons. If the civilian market got a 30% quota, there would be 45 tons. For the civilian market pricing of this product, Xiao Yu decided to set the price at 999 yuan per gram, fulfilling his previous promise to reduce the price to less than 1,000 yuan. The revenue scale that could be created by this 45-ton production capacity alone was an astonishing 44.955 billion yuan. It took a lot of effort to get 35 tons of gold, which is worth 13.1 billion yuan. The same 35 tons of high-quality graphene materials can generate 35 billion yuan in revenue, and this is still the price down to 1,000 yuan per gram. In terms of money-making efficiency, it is much faster to deal in black technology products than to deal in gold. Xiao Yu currently reported a total production capacity of 2,000 tons, and another 1,850 tons of graphene products of different specifications and qualities. It is expected that 30% of the quota can be put on the civilian market for sale, which is about 555 tons. These 555 tons of products can be sold on the civilian market at an average price of 8.5 yuan per gram, which is 8,500 yuan per kilogram. The price of 555 tons is about 4.717 billion yuan. The purity and quality of graphene materials are different, and the price span is so large. Industrial-grade graphene materials that can be mass-produced on Earth are even cheaper, with only 50 cents to more than 1 yuan per gram. The revenue expected from the civilian market is 49.672 billion yuan in total. Military purchases account for the vast majority of the production capacity. Although the price has been reduced by 10 times, there is still income, and it is still an astronomical figure of tens of billions. It is not really a loss. The total expected income from military purchases can reach 11.589 billion. In other words, the 2,000 tons of graphene materials with a comprehensive production capacity is expected to bring the company a total revenue of more than 60 billion. This 2,000 tons of production capacity is only based on the current situation, and the production capacity will definitely be expanded step by step year by year in the future. In order to avoid exposing the secret, Xiao Yu deliberately controlled the risk and controlled the scale of the transaction for the sake of stability. If you openly trade from Blue Star without any scruples, it will not be measured in tons, but in 10,000 tons or even 100,000 tons. Graphene materials are too easy to obtain on Blue Star. However, when the technological industry system is established on Earth, Xiao Yu also plans to allow Earth to produce completely independently without having to import from Blue Star. Only in this way can the potential exposure risk be minimized in theory. The next day, Tuesday, July 27, 10:30 a.m. Prism Technology Company headquarters. Xiao Yu was in his office when his cell phone rang. The caller ID showed that it was Wen Suking. As soon as the call was connected, Wen Suking's voice came, "It has been arranged." Hearing this, Xiao Yu was refreshed and immediately replied, "Okay, I will immediately draft a document and issue an announcement." After a brief chat, Xiao Yu ended the call with Wen Suking, and then used the office landline to call the office of his assistant Yun Shu. After a while, Yun Shu came to him. When Xiao Yu saw her come in, he ordered her without waiting for her to speak, "You will immediately arrange to hold a board meeting in an hour to decide on an item, terminate the planning of major asset reorganization and withdraw the application documents." Yun Shu couldn't help but be stunned when she heard this. Xiao Yu didn't pay much attention to her expression change, and continued to order, "In addition, prepare an announcement for this, and announce it directly to the public once the board resolution results come out." Yun Shu came back to her senses from her astonishment. She saw that Xiao Yu was not joking, and nodded and said, "Okay, I'll arrange it right away." Just as she turned around and took a few steps, Xiao Yu suddenly called her, "Wait, don't tell the directors about the resolution to terminate the major asset reorganization, just tell them that there is a resolution to hold a board meeting for a vote on major matters." Hearing this, Yun Shu nodded, "Okay, I get it." At the same time, Wen Suking was also cooperating to arrange the factors that led to the failure of this reorganization, because Jingru Jink suddenly showed up and wanted to acquire Linghan New Materials at a high price. The shadow shareholder behind Jingru Jink is Rulian Group. But Jingru Jink is not a listed company. Xiang Chongwang had already made a note that Jingru Jink would fully cooperate with Penghu Capital in hunting down several major shareholders of Prism Technology in the capital market. Xiao Yu convened a board meeting, and the vote on the resolution to terminate the major asset restructuring was passed without any suspense. It was just a formality. About 15 minutes later, the directors sent by several external shareholders of Penghu Capital learned the news and called the shareholders behind them as soon as possible. Zhou Beichuan also received the news soon. It seems that Xiao Yu convened the board meeting today and decided to adjust the absorption of 51% of Linghan New Materials equity to absorption of 100% of the comprehensive merger and reorganization. Zhou Beichuan was quite satisfied. Until now, he thought that Xiao Yu had really turned the page with him, and the friendship boat was happily rowing again. Zhou Beichuan immediately looked at his subordinates who came to report, "Quick, inform the traders to quickly grab the Prism technology to go long. Don't waste time absorbing the chips." I guess those guys will also let their subordinates grab the chips. Once this announcement comes out, the third main uptrend will definitely start directly, and we will definitely not be able to get such cheap chips later. The subordinates left immediately and went to convey the boss's intentions to the traders. "Boy, do you want me to cut my losses? After all, you are still too young. The one who laughs last is the winner. You still have a lot to learn." Zhou Beichuan talked to himself comfortably, as if he had everything under control. However, he had not yet realized the seriousness of the problem, and he had seriously misjudged Xiao Yu, which was a disaster. He rushed to the last trip to give a big one. Zhou Beichuan's magical operation made everyone numb, including himself. This amazing move of his not only caused Penghu Capital to suffer heavy losses, but also made him be mocked by his peers in the industry for many years. He completely lost face and reputation. As long as this incident was used to expose his scars, Zhou Beichuan would instantly turn red on the spot and break his defense. Chapter 38, Stop pretending, just show your cards. Penghu Capital's traders no longer hesitated after receiving the boss's order, and quickly rushed to buy Prism Technology. At this time, the market was not good. After yesterday's sharp drop, the stock fell again today by -7%. At around 10:42, the time-sharing line of Prism Technology's market suddenly turned and rushed straight up. Not only was the shadow account held by Penghu Capital scrambling for shares, but several other investment institutions were also asking their traders to rush to buy shares. They surprisingly unanimously judged that Xiao Yu convened the board of directors today to revise the proposed merger and reorganization of 100% of Linghan New Materials equity. The stock price of Prism Technology was like pulling onions from dry land, and it went straight up all the way without any retracement. 10,000 large orders swept the stock one after another, and in less than a minute, it rose from -7% underwater to +15%, as if it was going to hit the daily limit. This wave of strong pull-ups not only attracted many small and scattered investors to follow suit, but also some hot money to follow suit. Because the large funds buying the market were too strong and determined to go long, they had to look up to it. This momentum is the posture of the third main rising wave. Everyone's first reaction is that the news is beyond expectations, and they are all following the trend to buy. Around 10:45, the share price of Prism Technology rose to 37.51 yuan, an increase of +19.99% to the daily limit, and the market value climbed to 32.558 billion. The amount of funds on the daily limit is an exaggerated 7.5 billion, which shocked all kinds of funds. At around 11:45, Xiao Yu's board meeting had ended. At this moment, Zhou Beichuan was quite comfortable waiting for news, but just a moment later, his assistant rushed in and hurried into the office. Zhou Beichuan immediately showed his displeasure. "Why are you so flustered? Is the sky falling?" His assistant immediately said, "Boss Zhou, something bad has happened. Prism Technology has just concluded the board resolution. Xiao Yu has terminated the reorganization with Linghan New Materials. This is the fax information just sent by Director Zhang." Zhou Beichuan's pupils suddenly shrank, and he stood up from the boss chair like a spring. "What did you say?" He immediately snatched the document handed over by his subordinates, and was stunned as he read it. Veins popped out on his forehead, the corners of his eyes twitched, and his whole body turned red. The office was suddenly terribly quiet, and his assistant didn't dare to breathe, secretly glancing at the boss. Zhou Beichuan instantly broke through his defense, and was furious. He slammed the document to the ground, and turned into a desktop cleaning master. With a sharp sweep of his arms, he cleared the phone, pen holder, documents and other things on the table. The desktop was clean, and the floor was a mess. "Xiao Yu, you bastard. How dare you do this? How dare you do this?" Zhou Beichuan lost his composure after reading the document. He roared in anger on the spot, and his lungs were about to explode. If he still didn't understand at this moment, he would have lived half his life in vain. Xiao Yu had never thought of turning the page from the beginning. He had already prepared to completely break up, and carefully planned a pit for them to enter. Linghan New Materials was one of the links in the carefully set trap for them from the beginning to the end. I thought Xiao Yu just wanted to make up for some of the ground and didn't dare to completely break up with the capital. Zhou Beichuan confidently believed that Xiao Yu didn't dare, and the other investors were also so sure. Before, the short opening was forced to short, and was forced to cut meat and admit losses. I thought that I would secretly absorb funds and go long during this period, and then I would get back the principal and the losses of the short opening. As a result, I never expected that Xiao Yu would really dare to dig such a big pit, and it was not until today that the dagger was revealed. The failure of the board of directors' resolution to reorganize this time is equivalent to a direct showdown, and I won't pretend anymore. What made Zhou Beichuan angry the most was that he had seriously misjudged Xiao Yu an hour ago and asked the trader to rush to buy. This is a damn thing to rush to the last bus to send ahead. At that time, he was still full of confidence and had a posture of everything under control. Now thinking about it, he felt a burning pain on his face with shame. "Oh, right." Zhou Beichuan immediately yelled to his subordinates when he thought of this. "Quick! Let the trader stop buying immediately, close the position quickly, and close the position at any cost." The assistant nodded repeatedly and left quickly to inform the trader. At this moment, Zhou Beichuan was already angry and had heart pain, because he had placed a heavy bet on this layout to buy, and he had invested 1.5 billion in real money. When he opened the short position before, he had already lost 1 billion. It is very likely that this time the 2.5 billion will be lost. This is not in nominal market value, but real money. And that's not all. Zhou Beichuan realized that when things got to this point, Penghu Capital's 19.99% stake in Prism Technology might not be able to be sold. Xiao Yu obviously intended to do it thoroughly, without any room for maneuver. He would definitely drive the share price of Prism Technology to the lowest level of hell. It was impossible for them to withdraw their capital with profits, and they might not even be able to protect their capital. What was even more terrible was that Xiao Yu had already completed the gambling agreement. He had no restrictions or constraints on Prism Technology at all, and he had absolute control. What he said was final. In this case, it was too easy for Xiao Yu to be determined to drive the share price through. It was very difficult to make a company bigger and stronger, but it was too easy to bring a company down. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Zhou Beichuan was still happily calculating that he expected to make at least 20 billion from Prism Technology this time. In the long run, the upper limit of 50 billion was not impossible. Penghu Capital could reach the scale of 100 billion with this deal. Now it has completely failed, and it will lose 2 to 2.5 billion, which is 22.5 billion. It's a blood loss. I feel suffocated and my heart is about to break. The most serious thing is the loss of 2.5 billion in cash flow. Penghu Capital's cash flow is about 4 billion in total, and 2/3 of it was lost at once, which directly caused problems in Penghu Capital's entire risk control system. Many investment opportunities that could have been taken in the future may have to be abandoned or handed over to others because of the loss of 2.5 billion in cash flow. This fall is really a bit big. It is definitely a big injury, and it will take 3 to 5 years to recover. The most difficult thing is that today's Xiangsu level sending head operation is simply a great shame. Where will I put my face if it gets out? I will be laughed to death by my peers in the future. Thinking of this, Zhou Beichuan felt black in front of his eyes and almost fainted. At the same time, several other investment institutions were not much better. After learning about the matters resolved by the board of directors, they were petrified on the spot. They also immediately asked the traders to withdraw orders and close long positions. At 12:16 p.m., Prism Technology suddenly released an announcement at noon. Announcement on the termination of planning for major asset restructuring and withdrawal of application documents. The content of the announcement is relatively long. The general meaning is that in view of the fact that the recent market environment has changed significantly compared to the beginning of the planning of this restructuring, combined with the current situation, the actual situation of the company and future development judgment, the conditions of this transaction have changed significantly. After careful study and friendly consultation, the board of directors agreed that the company would terminate this restructuring and apply to the exchange to withdraw the relevant application documents for this restructuring. At the same time, in accordance with the provisions of laws, regulations and normative documents such as the management measures for major asset restructuring of listed companies, the company promises not to plan major asset restructuring matters within at least 1 month from the date of disclosure of this announcement. The board of directors of the company deeply apologizes for the inconvenience caused to investors by the termination of this transaction, and expresses sincere gratitude to investors who have paid attention to and supported the development of the company for a long time. The announcement is signed, Board of Directors of Linsao Prism Technology Company, Limited. July 27, 2021. Chapter 39. As soon as the announcement was made, investors from all walks of life were petrified. As soon as this announcement was released, all the investors who were betting on the stock of Prism Technology were petrified on the spot. The hot money that was scrambling to buy shares was directly split on the spot when it saw this news. Those who entered the market today were all dumbfounded when they saw this announcement. Bad news appeared one after another, and then a short essay began to spread wildly. A source broke the news that everything was going smoothly for this restructuring, but Jing suddenly appeared halfway and offered a series of extremely generous conditions. As for what specific promises were made, no information was revealed. In short, Jing suddenly came out halfway and intercepted the matter. The merger and restructuring of Linghan New Materials and Prism Technology is over. The comment area of Prism Technology stock forum was completely blown up. Xiao, I'm your father, ha 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 ha. Your status has dropped so fast, and Xiao Xin has become Xiao all of a sudden. Now he should be called Xiao Liu, a typical Liu behavior, one la. Quan one la. I was fooled again. I was fooled every time, But it was different. Xiao Yu, how dare you do this, family, something bad has happened. Prism technology has been NT-read by Jingrujink. This marriage cannot be concluded. Family, run, 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 goddamn NTR, you want to make me laugh to death. This is the rhythm of tricking and killing. Several speculators have been tricked. They have already broken the defense and cursed on Zukiu and Taoba. It seems that they have taken a large position. It's over. I bought half of the position. Dare to fight with others, which means you are also a desperate person. This banker and the company boss went in together to step on the sewing machine to relieve their hatred. Unscrupulous company, what is a fraudulent restructuring? Have you seen it now? The so-called restructuring is a complete scam. The actual controller of such a company should be severely punished. It's too shameless. Although I don't hold this stock, it's too disgusting to eat it. Rumor has it that Xiao Yu is taking revenge on several investors and major shareholders who cheated him. It was previously rumored that Xiao Yu is likely to be kicked out by the capital. It seems that the rumor is not groundless. It can only be said that when major shareholders fight, small investors suffer. Stay away from stocks with disputes between major shareholders. Passing by, it's awesome. I don't know how many more limit downs there are. This is a 20 centimeter limit down on the gem. One limit down means a loss of 20 points, although I didn't buy this stock. This method of cutting weeks is too scary. It scares me. I'd better play my ETF honestly. All the stockholders who participated in this stock still have chips in their hands and haven't sold them, or those who are still queuing orders and haven't canceled their orders. At this moment, they have only one thought in their minds: Wacko Prism technology has been cheated by Jingrujink. Run. 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 Cancel the orders, and sell the nuclear button limit down like crazy, and run for your life. As long as I can get out today, I can accept the limit down, and I have to thank God for getting out. Those who bought today are already stupid, and they are finished. They can't run away even if they want to. Because what I bought today can only be sold tomorrow, but tomorrow will definitely be a limit down of 100 trillion, and it is impossible to get out. As time passed by, at 1300 hours in the afternoon opened on time. At the moment of opening, the terrifying selling orders of more than 3.9 billion immediately smashed the share price of Prism Technology from the daily limit through 40 points. The stock price fell to 25.01 yuan and directly closed the limit down. The transaction volume was less than 100 million before it was completely closed. At this time, the barrage of the time-sharing interface and the comment area of the stock bar of this stock were all flooded, watching and eating melons. I have never bought it, and I was scared to death. In an instant, 40 centimeters fell from the daily limit to the limit down, which is really eye-opening, telling a horror story. This is just the beginning. I don't know how many more limit drops will come later. It's over. This is not a landmine. It's a fucking nuclear explosion. Xiao Yu, you are a ruthless person. I don't want to play anymore. Give me back my money JPG. The limit drop instantly. No matter big funds or small retail investors, all are killed. Damn it. It harmed investors. Fortunately it was sold in the green market this morning. I will never play with restructuring garbage again. Buried. My 1,500 shares. Crying bitterly JPG. This kind of garbage behavior of listed companies is really shameless. Blacklist them. Never pay attention to such stocks. What should I do? I am going to go bankrupt. What should I do with 20,000 shares at 37 yuan? I can see that my account will recover its investment if it rises a little bit. 2 days ago, I issued an announcement and everything went smoothly. Why did it suddenly terminate? It has harmed people a lot. Can I sue for this? Who knows how to protect my rights? If you say reorganization, you reorganize. If you say no reorganization, you don't reorganize. What's the point of the law? You might as well go to the gate of Prism Technology and wait for Xiao Yu to PK with him offline. Xiao Yu, not appropriate JPG, happy. Xiao Yu probably doesn't dare to go out. It's useless. A few years ago, Changfei Jicheng failed to reorganize. Some people lost tens of millions of yuan by playing leverage. There is nothing to do. Prism Technology is so similar to Changfei back then. At the close of the market today, Prism Technology closed at the limit down without any suspense. It has to be said that the reverse Xiangxiu operation of several investment institutions of Penghu Capital in the early trading not only made themselves look bad, but also pitted many funds that took over today. Not only some small retail investors, but also some big investors and hot money also misjudged that it would go strong for the third wave and entered the market to take over. As a result, they found out after entering the market that what they grabbed was not chips, but a big Ivan-level nuclear bomb. Xiao Yu's villa residence. At this time, when Suking was also at his house, the two of them sat in the living room quietly without saying anything, because at this moment a call came to Xiao Yu's mobile phone. He also put the phone on the table but just didn't answer it. The caller ID was no one else, but Zhou Beichuan, who called Xiao Yu personally. When Suking glanced at the screen of the mobile phone and looked at Xiao Yu, "Don't you plan to answer it and listen to his reaction?" Xiao Yu leaned back on the sofa with his legs crossed and smiled. "No, it's more interesting and more imaginative to make up your own mind." Hearing this, when Suking covered her mouth and smiled, and then said, "No need to think about it, it must be a big break." Angry, and furious, in the end, Xiao Yu picked up the phone and decisively blocked it, and also blocked several other investors. At the same time, he set the phone to the whitelist, and only the numbers in the whitelist could call him. On the other side, Zhou Beichuan, who was rejected by the call, was so angry that his phone was smashed on the spot. When Suking said, "I don't know much about stock speculation, so I asked a professional for advice. The answer I got was that Prism technology has killed a lot of funds today, including some hot money, and there may be self-rescue behavior later. We can't let the funds work together to save themselves, otherwise Zhou Beichuan and other investors will fall into the trap and they will run away." Xiao Yu nodded. "So next we have to find a way to make the stock price fall to the limit." When Suking added, "The next plan is to release negative news one after another. I will have a team to cooperate with the operation to give the market an extremely negative expectation, break through the stock price and trigger a forced delisting. It can be predicted that once such an expectation is formed, all holders will stampede and flee, and no one will dare to buy at the bottom." Chapter 40, Break below 1 yuan and boldly buy at the bottom, go all in. What is this bastard kid going to do? What does this bastard mean? Zhou Beichuan, who couldn't get through to Xiao Yu's phone at this time, broke down his defense and was furious. In fact, he already knew in his heart that everyone underestimated the enemy this time and fell into Xiao Yu's trap. They didn't actually think of this layer of risk, but the biggest mistake was overconfidence. They were sure that Xiao Yu really didn't dare and didn't have the courage to completely break up with the capital and didn't dare to completely offend the capital. This time it was really a big blow to Penghu Capital. It was definitely a heavy loss, and even greater losses were still to come. The other investors were not much better. The previous short opening lost money and now the long position will continue to lose money. Xiao Yu was killed and buried in Prism technology. The total amount of funds buried by Penghu Capital and several investors reached an astonishing 50 to 60 billion. This is all real cash flow, not nominal market value. Immediately do a background check on Jingrujink. I want to know what the background of this company is. The furious Zhou Beichuan calmed himself down and called his men to give an order. Whether it was Penghu Capital or the other investors, they all started to investigate Jingrujink surprisingly unanimously. This company suddenly showed up without any warning, and they didn't know that the boss behind Jingrujink was Rulian Group, and they didn't know that Rulian Group had actually intervened in this game. On the other side, Yun Shu came to Xiao Yu's villa, and Qin Yu led her to the living room inside the house. When Suking, who was sitting in the living room, saw Yun Shu coming over, she turned to look at Xiao Yu and smiled. "Go ahead and do what you have to do. The follow-up plans and arrangements have been communicated, and they just need to be executed according to the plan." Xiao Yu nodded. "Okay, keep in touch." As soon as when Suking left, Xiao Yu and Yun Shu were the only ones left in the living room. She took out a document from her briefcase and handed it to Xiao Yu. The company's semi-annual report has been audited. Xiao Yu, who was sitting on the sofa with his back against the sofa, crossed his legs, waved his hand and said, "Just read the key points." After that, he motioned for the beautiful assistant to sit down and report again. Yun Shu sat down in the seat where Wen Suking had just sat, and then opened the financial report document. The company's revenue in the first half of the year was 865 million, a year-on-year decrease of -34.27%, and a net profit loss of -73.7453 million, a year-on-year decrease of -67.28%. The company has suffered a loss for the first time since it made a profit in the past 5 years. Prism Technologies' performance in the first half of this year has been declining. The most direct reason is that it was suppressed by several investors of Penghu Capital. Several important customers have eliminated Prism Technology from the supply chain. This is the result of the covert operation of several investors. In the same period last year, Prism Technology's operating income in the first half of the year was 1.3 billion yuan, but in the first half of this year, it was only more than 800 million yuan, and the net profit directly turned to loss. However, Xiao Yu was very happy to hear this performance report. Because what he wanted now was the company's stock price to fall through, and he just needed bad news, and the more the better. This can be regarded as several investors of Penghu Capital shooting themselves in the foot. Xiao Yu said with satisfaction, "Very good, the performance forecast will be released in an hour, go ahead." Seeing his undisguised happiness after hearing that the company had lost money, Yunshu couldn't help but murmur in his heart, but nodded and responded, "Well, I'll start to arrange it now." Yunshu stood up and walked away. Xiao Yu pondered for a moment, suddenly looked up and said, "Wait a minute, come back." Xiao Yu felt that it was still not safe enough, so he decided to continue to release more negative news to ensure that the opponent would not have any chance to save himself and escape. Yunshu heard his words, turned around in surprise, and then walked back slowly. Xiao Yu looked at her and asked, "How much is your current salary? How much is the company offering you?" Hearing this, Yunshu answered him, My current monthly salary is 35k 15. Xiao Yu retracted his gaze and said to himself, "That's an annual salary of 525,000, which is indeed a little less." After a moment, Xiao Yu looked up at the beautiful assistant in front of him and smiled. "I have decided to give all the more than 1,500 employees of the company a collective salary increase of 35% from August, and another collective salary increase of 35% from next year. This decision is not only to suppress the company's stock price at the moment, but also to reasonably suppress the company's profit margin in the future." But Xiao Yu will not tell anyone about this intention. When Yunshu heard his decision to raise the salaries of all employees, a confused look instantly appeared on his face. Raising the salaries of all employees at this critical juncture? And it's such a sharp increase. After one wave of increases, there will be another wave of increases in less than half a year? At present, the monthly salary of the grassroots employees of Prism Technology is 7,500 yuan. After the first wave of increase, all employees will have a monthly salary of over 10,000 yuan. If the salary increases by 35% next year, the salary of grassroots employees will reach 13,600 yuan per month. Yunshu couldn't help but say, the current situation of the company is not optimistic, which may bring great pressure to the company's capital turnover. Xiao Yu ignored her and continued to say, "As for you, you are a veteran of the company. You followed me less than 2 months after Prism Technology was established. At that time, I gave you a monthly salary of 4,000, and it was delayed for half a year. You didn't complain about anything. You should be given a higher salary. The first wave will be raised to 60k 17, and the second wave will be raised to 85k 18. Well, this is good, so let's do it." Yunshu didn't know what to say for a while when she heard that he decided so decisively. The salary was raised to 85k per month, and the bonus was raised to 6-month salary, which is equivalent to an annual salary of 1.53 million. At this time, Xiao Yu looked at Yunshu and smiled. "As for the salary increase, you should prepare the materials as soon as possible. I will convene a board meeting the day after tomorrow to go through the process and vote on the salary increase proposal." Seeing that he had made up his mind, Yunshu didn't plan to say anything else. "Well, I know," Xiao Yu said, "that's all, go and do your thing." But Yunshu didn't move. She hesitated for a moment and said, "My option shares will be unblocked next week, and I plan to sell them off." The first group of people who followed Xiao Yu to start a business all had different degrees of option incentives and stock allotments. As one of the core members of the team, Yunshu was still regarded as a trusted subordinate by Xiao Yu, so naturally he had option allotments. He was just taking a salary, and at that time it was only 4,000 yuan a month. At that time, they were not familiar with each other and were not friends. Yunshu would not do it without the promise of options. Hearing her words, Xiao Yu couldn't help but laugh and said, "Even you are so pessimistic about the future of Prism Technology? Then I'm relieved." the stock price will definitely fall through. Yunshu hurriedly explained. That's not what I meant, Xiao Yu said calmly. Don't sell, you are not allowed to sell. You won't be able to sell it next week. The stock price will continue to fall. When you can sell it, the stock price will have reached the floor. This is called selling at a loss, and it is the original shares that are being sold. Prism Technologies shares will be valuable in the future. Hold on firmly and don't sell them, otherwise I, the boss, will spank you. Yunshu, Xiao Yu immediately added, not only can you not sell, but when the stock price falls to the floor price, it's best to increase your holdings in the secondary market. How many shares are your options allotted? Hearing this, Yunshu immediately replied, a total of 3 million shares, according to the current closing price of Prism Technology at 25.01 yuan per share. The market value of 3 million shares is 75.03 million yuan. However, this is only paper wealth. Because it has not been cashed out, it can only be regarded as nominal value now. In the current situation, the company's market value will definitely shrink wildly. Xiao Yu thought about it and looked at Yunshu. Then at least increase your holdings by 2 million shares, a total of 5 million shares, hold them firmly. Yunshu couldn't help but said in a daze, I don't have so much money to buy 2 million shares. Xiao Yu also shook his head. Why do you suddenly have a short circuit in your brain? You are so stupid. Do you want me to buy now? Wait until the stock price falls before buying. Let me think. Just wait until it falls below 1 yuan and then you go to buy the bottom, boldly buy the bottom, and go all in. As soon as these words came out, Yunshu's beautiful eyes widened and she was immediately surprised. The company's stock price will fall below 1 yuan. Chapter 41. Bad news came one after another, and investors fell to a state of confusion. Now that Zhou Beichuan and several other investors have been successfully trapped, they can't run away. Xiao Yu also absolutely trusts Yunshu, the beautiful assistant, so it's okay to let her know some things now. At this time, Xiao Yu stared at the beautiful assistant and said slowly, you suffered a lot with me during the early years of starting a business. At that time, your salary was not much, and the bonus shares were less than 0.35% of the total share capital. This return is indeed not equal to your efforts over the years. Now I can't increase the bonus shares with you alone, otherwise it will be very troublesome, otherwise other people will be upset. Xiao Yu further added, this time I will clear Zhou Beichuan and others out and let them cut their losses on the floor. The company's stock price will experience a short-term serious oversell phenomenon. At that time, you can use your parents' accounts to increase your holdings in the secondary market. In short, you are an absolutely trustworthy person. If your economic conditions allow, you can increase your holdings to less than 10 million shares. Yunshu heard Xiao Yu say this and decided to change her mind and not sell. The chairman was obviously giving her a special treatment. If she still sold, it would be really stupid. She calculated in her mind and couldn't help but said weakly, even if the stock price drops below 1 yuan, increasing holdings by 2 million shares will cost more than 1 million or close to 2 million. I don't have that much money. Xiao Yu glanced at the beautiful assistant and said helplessly, look at you, the food is almost fed directly into your mouth. You can't ask the boss to borrow money to buy stocks, right? Seeing that Xiao Yu couldn't help but complain, Yunshu put her hands behind her back, with a cute expression on her face trying to get away with it. Such a move was rare. However, this trick didn't work on Xiao Yu, so he said without even raising his head, don't you have a house? Sell it quickly at a low price to cash it out, and put all your savings into it. You will have everything in less than half a year. Remember to be quick. The company's stock price will fall quickly and rise even faster. Now that things have come to this, Yunshu certainly knows what to do. She smiled and nodded slightly. Well, I'll go deal with the house after get off work and prepare the cash. That's right. Xiao Yu was very satisfied to see that Yunshu trusted him without hesitation, but then he said solemnly, but just do it quietly, don't make it public and don't ask a bunch of relatives to buy it. The company's interest structure will be very complicated in the future, and all kinds of people will inevitably fight each other. It's the game of the king, and bronze players should not get involved. It's not a blessing for them, but a disaster. Yunshu nodded. Okay, I remember. After explaining the matter, Yunshu left. After a while, the housekeeper Qin Yu entered the house and found Xiao Yu to report something to him. Sir, when Ms. Yunshu left just now, she asked me about Ms. Chu Jintang. Hearing this, Xiao Yu looked at the housekeeper in surprise. Why did she ask about Jintang? What did she ask? Can you answer truthfully? Mainly to inquire about your divorce. Xiao Yu pondered for a moment, and seemed to understand something. He suddenly asked the housekeeper, what do you think? Can you pretend to be stupid for a moment? Oh, as a person who has experienced it, Qin Yu certainly knew what the patriarch meant to ask, but he was not clear about the patriarch's attitude. No matter how he answered, it would be inappropriate, and he could only saying one more word would be a waste of his life. Seeing this, Xiao Yu waved his hand. Okay, go and get busy. Qin Yu nodded and left immediately. It was a bit difficult for him to express his opinion on this matter. Xiao Yu was alone and could not help but ponder silently. Yun Shu suddenly asked about Xu Jintang's divorce, which made him realize that this assistant who had been working with him for many years might have some thoughts, otherwise she would not have made sense to ask about such things privately. Xu Jintang was Xiao Yu's lover who knew each other in college, and they got married just after graduating from college. The father-in-law's family was very good, especially the father-in-law liked this son-in-law very much. At that time, Xiao Yu had not yet made a fortune. After founding Prism Technology, it was not easy in the early days of entrepreneurship. Xiao Yu was almost at the forefront of the company every day, and the time to accompany Xu Jintang was inevitably getting less and less, but Xu Jintang was not dissatisfied. Instead, he silently supported Xiao Yu's career and encouraged him all the time, and the relationship between the two was very stable. Later, his career gradually got on track, the company was successfully listed, and Xiao Yu's net worth skyrocketed. His life can be said to be super perfect, with a successful family and career. He even began to consider having a child, a complete winner in life. But all this suddenly took a sharp turn for the worse a few months ago. Xiao Yu realized belatedly that he had been tricked by the capital, and his relationship with the capital gradually deteriorated. Xiao Yu did not sit still and wait for death, but secretly began to plan for the worst. After careful consideration, Xiao Yu made some operations to transfer part of his wealth totaling 100 million yuan to Xu Jintang's name, and divorced her in a fake way. If the bet fails at that time, it will not be eaten up by the capital. At most, Xiao Yu will owe a lot of debts. Divorcing Xu Jintang will not be considered a joint debt, and the property under her name will not be used to fill the debt pit, and there will be funds to make a comeback in the future. But Xiao Yu never expected that Xu Jintang didn't know what medicine he had taken wrong, and actually turned the fake play into reality, and directly confronted him a week before Xiao Yu accidentally obtained the teleportation star ring. The fake divorce became a real divorce, and now it has become an established fact. Now Xiao Yu has no intention and is too lazy to explore the reasons. Half an hour later, Prism Technology released its earnings forecast. The company's revenue in the first half of the year was 865 million yuan, a year-on-year decrease of -34.27%. The net profit loss in the first half of the year was -73.7453 million yuan, a year-on-year decrease of -67.28%. When investors saw the semi-annual report earnings forecast, they felt that the already welded limit down was further sealed with several layers of concrete. Some high-price investors who stood guard at the historical highest price of 50.50 yuan have been holding out until now. The stock price has fallen to 25.01 yuan, which has been cut in half. The terrible thing is that this is just the beginning. In the following days, Prism Technology stock price continued to fall to the limit down without any suspense. On Friday night, another major negative news came out. Prism Technology issued an announcement that the company's board of directors passed a resolution on a salary increase plan. The announcement stated that with the development of the company's business and the continuous changes in the market environment, in order to better stimulate the enthusiasm of employees and improve work efficiency, the company decided to make corresponding adjustments to employee salaries. The first round of salary adjustments will increase the salaries of all employees of the company by no less than 35%, and the second round of salary adjustments will increase the salaries of all employees of the company by no less than 35% starting from January next year. The plan has been voted on and passed by the board of directors. The directors sent by Penghu Capital are of course opposed, but opposition cannot prevent the passage of the resolution. They can oppose verbally, but they have to vote in favor because they have signed a concerted action agreement. Even if they vote against it, Xiao Yu still has more than half of the votes in his hands and cannot stop it. There is no doubt that investors are definitely not happy and regard it as a major negative. The employees of Prism Technology are of course extremely happy. Starting next month, their salaries will soar by 35% on the spot. The salary increases so much at once, how can they not be happy? After this round of salary increases, the company's grassroots employees have also achieved a monthly income of over 10,000 yuan. In the following week, the share price of Prism Technology continued to fall to the limit. Since the first limit, it has fallen to the limit for 8 consecutive times. The following 7 limit falls were all limit falls, and it could not be lifted at all. All the holders of this stock fell to the point of dizziness and confusion. Some stockholders' holding costs were around 10 yuan, thinking that at most the profit would be greatly reduced and they would not lose money. The result was unexpected. The share price of Prism Technology fell to the limit all the way to the current price of 5.25 yuan. Even if the cost was 10 yuan, not only did the profit return to the principal, but it was also cut in half. Such a sharp drop is really terrifying, making countless stockholders feel numb. From the historical highest price of 50.50 to the current 5.25, the cumulative decline has reached minus 89.60%. The terrible thing is that there is no sign of opening the board yet. Even if you enter with a light position, you will scream in pain. If you enter with a heavy position or even a full position, it is basically not much different from closing your account. The company with the worst losses was Penghu Capital, which lost more than 2.5 billion yuan and now has less than 350 million yuan left. In addition, the market value of the shares of Prism Technology it holds has also shrunk to just over 900 million yuan. All in all, Penghu Capital's losses have reached 10 billion yuan, of which 2.2 billion yuan is real money. Zhou Beichuan is about to vomit blood now, and the worst thing is that this is not the end yet. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42, Rui Liang doesn't take it for free. If there is something wrong, it will really work. The next day, Saturday morning. Wen Suking came to Xiao Yu's villa to discuss the next plan. At this moment, Xiao Yu looked at Wen Suking and smiled. I plan to let Prism Technology cross-border into the food processing industry, grain trade, supermarkets and other industries, so as to create a new round of big negatives. This decision is not simply to create super negatives for the market and suppress the share price of Prism Technology, but also to make arrangements for the future to sell food products to Blue Star. Now it is just right to cover up this purpose. If you wait until this matter is over, it will be difficult to do it. After all, you are a technology company. Wen Suking naturally didn't expect Xiao Yu to have this intention. When he heard his decision, he agreed and said, this is a good idea. As a technology company, it crosses over to an unfamiliar field, food processing, grain trade and other industries that are completely unrelated to the main business. Under normal circumstances, basically no company would do this kind of operation, because it is a big death behavior, and it is because the company is not closing fast enough. When investors see such news, no one will dare to risk their lives to buy Prism Technology's stocks. Then the funds of Penghu Capital and several other investors buried inside will never be able to come out, and the stock price will be further killed. Of course, all the funds chasing the rise that day will be killed. In fact, Xiao Yu only wants to bury Zhou Beichuan and others' funds. But, there is no way, this is indiscriminate AOE damage. And it must be killed cleanly and thoroughly, and it is impossible to open the one-word limit board in the middle. Once the board is opened, the funds of several investors of Penghu Capital will definitely run out first. Monday, August 9th. Today, Prism Technology once again hit the one-word limit board, which is also the 9th consecutive limit board. The stock price fell to 4.20 yuan, returning to the position before the first board started to rise. The closing price of the day before the first board started to rise was 4.12 yuan. When it soared, it was a mess, and it was even worse when it fell. Seeing such a trend of explosive killing, many stockholders are glad that they did not place such a monster stock. They really fast-forwarded to the account cancellation process on the spot after taking the last baton. At 9:35 in the morning, there was a sudden fun seesaw. The limit down board opened and rushed up to 4.79 yuan, narrowing the decline to minus 8.76%, and the trading volume quickly released 100 million. But in less than 10 seconds, it was smashed down again and completely sealed the limit down. At about the same time when the limit down board was pried open, a short essay had spread rapidly, and it was rumored that Prism Technology would cross over to do food processing and grain trade. The appearance of this rumor directly led to the failure of this pry board self-rescue. All the 130 million funds traded were buried, including some people who risked their lives to follow the trend of prying the board to grab the rebound. The main funds for the pry board were mainly from Penghu Capital and several investors. The good news is that there ran out of some funds, and the bad news is that the funds that ran out were not as much as the funds for the pry board, and then the limit down board was sealed again. Under normal circumstances, such a tragic plunge should have opened the board to give a technical rebound, and the technical side should be the same. But now it has been pressed to the limit down, indicating that it is an abnormal situation. The next day, Prism Technology hit the 10th limit down, and it was still a limit down. The stock price fell to 3.36 yuan, a record low. Shortly after the afternoon closing, a major negative news came again. The previous essay was true. The board of directors of Prism Technology passed a new resolution that the company will develop new businesses and enter the food processing and grain trading industries, thus crossing over to an unfamiliar field. Investors saw that the company would be killed by such a play. So the stock price fell to the limit down without any suspense. This week, there were 5 limit downs, and the stock price fell to 1.38 yuan. At that time, the market value of Prism Technology was only 1.197 billion. This market value was lower than the 1.5 billion valuation of Penghu Capital's financing, and it had lost so much money that it vomited blood. Super negative news broke out again on the weekend. The essay was powerful again. It was rumored that the disputes between the major shareholders of Prism Technology were irreconcilable, and the company would become a victim. Delisting was the final outcome of the company. Well, continue to sell. The new week was indeed a day of limit down, with Prism Technology's share price hitting a record low of 1.10 yuan, leaving the company's market value at only 953.8 million yuan. However, this stock was still forced to break the limit down this afternoon, because several investors of Penghu Capital could no longer sit still. This time, it was not a self-rescue of funds, but a forced protection of the market. From the rumors of the small work, there reads Xiao Yu's idea, wanting to drive Prism Technology's share price below 1 yuan for 20 trading days, thereby triggering the forced delisting mechanism. Several investors came to this conclusion and completely lived in Bengbu. 3 days later, that is, this Thursday, the shares of several major shareholders of Penghu Capital will be unblocked and can be circulated and reduced in the secondary market. At this juncture, the company was triggered to be forced to delist. Obviously, they could not accept it, so they were forced to come out to protect the market, first stabilize the share price above 1 yuan, and then find Xiao Yu to negotiate. Prism Technology finally did not close at the limit today, and finally closed with a sharp drop of minus 14.49%, with the stock price closing at 1.18 yuan, and the market value was only 1.024 billion yuan. At about 1600 hours in the afternoon, when Suking came to Xiao Yu's villa residence, she received a call from Xiao Yu, and there was an important matter to discuss. I received news today that Zhou Beichuan wanted to find me to negotiate directly. They are a little overwhelmed, Xiao Yu said, looking at Wen Suking, and added, "What do you think about this matter? Has Rulian made any moves?" Wen Suking said after listening, "You don't need to show up for the rest of the matter. Rulian will take action to face them directly, so that you can be removed from the core of the contradiction. Only in this way will Zhou Beichuan and others think that you are just a minor role pushed to the front of the stage in the whole incident. This is not your plan. It is Rulian who really hunts and strangles them." In other words, Rulian Group took the initiative to help Xiao Yu take all the blame, and then directly confronted Penghu Capital and several other investors in the middle. Hearing this, Xiao Yu nodded, "Okay, then I'll wait for good news from Rulian." Without a doubt, this is what Xiao Yu likes to hear the most, and it couldn't be better. Rulian is really not taken for nothing, and it really stands in front to block bullets and calm the situation. Rulian's strong appearance at this time will instantly usher in a huge change in the whole situation. Zhou Beichuan and other investors will have a great reduction in their motivation to retaliate against Xiao Yu afterwards, because they will definitely believe that the core of the whole incident is not Xiao Yu, but is hunted and strangled by the more powerful Rulian. In this way, their hatred for Xiao Yu will be greatly reduced. And knowing that Xiao Yu is already protected by Rulian is also a great deterrent to them, and can further reduce their willingness to retaliate. From the perspective of Zhou Beichuan and others, being hunted and strangled by the Rulian group can, to a certain extent, make them more self-comforting to accept failure. The Rulian group is powerful, and it is normal to be unable to fight them. It is not too shameful to say it out, and at least they can retain a trace of dignity. Xiao Yu looked at Wensuking. How does Rulian Group plan to take over the interests held by several investors of Penghu Capital? Will it sell them at a low price? Sell them in the secondary market and then take them over? Or other methods? Wensuking told him very directly, Rulian will not come forward directly, but will let Penghu Capital package them as non-performing assets and sell them to designated AMC companies at a low price, and then split them up. After a pause, Wensuking added, for part of it, at the right time, Rulian Group will complete the equity transfer through bulk transactions, accounting for approximately 4.5% of the shares of Prism Technology, and then increase its holdings in the secondary market by 0.5% to reach the mark and raise the flag for Prism Technology. On the surface, Rulian only holds 5% of the shares of Prism Technology. After listening to her story, Xiao Yu roughly guessed that Rulian Group planned to secretly hold the remaining equity interests through shadow shareholders. Xiao Yu felt more relieved that the 5% stake was raised to the threshold. Rulian's move indirectly indicated that it did not want to seek control of the company, but as a strategic financial investor, it was obviously seeking to make it easier to cash out in the future. This arrangement can circumvent the restriction that the reduction of holdings needs to be announced in advance, and disperse it to let shadow shareholders hold the shares on behalf of the shareholders. When a main body does not hold more than 5% of the shares, it does not need to issue a reduction announcement 15 days in advance according to relevant regulations when reducing its holdings, and can directly cash out and leave the market in the secondary market at any time. Is it a violation? Of course it is a violation, but you won't find fault with it. This is the reality. As for the fact that Rulian Group raised its stake of 5%, it is obviously a move to calm the situation and tell others that Rulian's interests are involved. Chapter 43. Several major investors admitted their losses and exited the market. At the same time, Penghu Capital. What a bunch of good-for-nothings. After so many days of background check, this is all. Zhou Beichuan stayed alone in his office, looking at the documents in his hand with great anger. This was a background check report on Jingrujink. Zhou Beichuan looked around and found that he had not penetrated the underlying asset structure of this company at all. To put it simply and bluntly, he had not yet found out who the real owner behind Jingrujink was. Zhou Beichuan threw the materials aside and called several other investors who were also barred to inquire. The result was that they did not penetrate Jingrujink either, and did not know the specific background of this company. Oh no, Zhou Beichuan suddenly had a bad premonition at this time. Whether his subordinates were really good-for-nothings, Zhou Beichuan had some idea in his mind. There was another possibility for the background check to be like this. That is, the behind-the-scenes existence of the background check target Jingrujink could not be found with the ability of Penghu Capital. In other words, it is very likely that there is an existence with far greater strength than Penghu Capital hiding behind the scenes to play a game, which immediately made Zhou Beichuan realize that the problem might be more serious than he thought. No wonder Xiao Yu, that bastard, dared to tear his face off completely. It seems that he is just a small character who is pushed to the surface, Zhou Beichuan thought to himself and kept speculating. Thinking that he had lost miserably and that Penghu Capital had been seriously injured, and he had not yet figured out who the real opponent was, Zhou Beichuan felt that something was wrong. He was not only panicked, but even a little terrified. Because the more he thought about it, the more he dared not think about it. It was simply terrifying to think about it. In the next few days, several investors of Penghu Capital began to protect the share price of Prism Technology, preventing the stock from falling below the 1 yuan price, and avoiding the forced delisting due to the stock price being below 1 yuan for 20 consecutive trading days. So the share price of Prism Technology began to go sideways near the 1 yuan price. Stockholders had already gone to play the next monster stock. As for Prism Technology, it was already an outdated monster stock and was worse than a dog. Its popularity had long fallen to hundreds of places and could not be on the popularity list. As time went on, the share price of Prism Technology went sideways for about a week, and Rulian Group did not want to wait any longer. After waiting for such a long time, Zhou Beichuan and several other investors still failed to penetrate Jingru and found out the real boss behind the company. Rulian Group was helpless and found that they had overestimated the other party, so they had to take the initiative to show up and send people to the door. Tuesday, August 24th, afternoon. Here, I will also speak frankly. Rulian has taken a fancy to the new technology of Xiao Yu's team. You have to get out. At this time in a bathhouse, the people sent by Rulian expressed their attitudes to Zhou Beichuan, and other heads of the investors present directly without any twists and turns. This is a bathhouse, everyone is taking a bath, and the problem of eavesdropping devices has been eliminated. The content of the conversation will not leave traces, so there is no need to hide it. Moreover, the people of Rulian Group rely on their own power and background to directly pressure others, which is obviously a matter of taste. Rulian will not play like this when dealing with people like Xiao Yu, who have the ability to create technological variables, but will make good connections the first priority. Because no one can be sure when Xiao Yu will have a flash of inspiration, and how much change the new technology will bring to the world, not to mention the relationship with Wensuking, which is also one of the factors that cannot be ignored. But Zhou Beichuan and others do not have such variables, and many conditions such as capital and connections are not as good as Rulian. Of course, they use power to suppress others, because this is efficient and it is the language they can understand the most. Zhou Beichuan and others are crying in their hearts. They never dreamed that the opponent they are dealing with is actually such an untouchable existence as Rulian Group. What can they do now? And they have been trapped, and there is no turning point at all. Zhou Beichuan and others soon realized that Rulian personally sent people to talk, and if it is not decent, they will definitely help you to be decent. If you insist on resisting, they have plenty of ways to clear the field, and then you will really be completely out of the game. As a player in the capital circle, Zhou Beichuan and others are of course aware of this. The law that the fast fish eats the slow fish, the big fish eats the small fish, and the small fish eats the shrimp is perfectly interpreted at this moment. Finally, Zhou Beichuan took the lead in expressing his position. Since Rulian Group has set its sights on this piece of profit, Penghu Capital is willing to give it up. We only hope that the investment in these 7 years can be withdrawn with principal preserved, and we do not want any profit. Zhou Beichuan also decisively admitted defeat. He could not change his mind. Now Rulian is the big fish, and he is a small fish and shrimp. Small fish and shrimp can only be eaten. There is no other way but to admit defeat, but he still tried to withdraw with principal preserved. Several other investors followed suit and expressed their willingness to withdraw with principal preserved. The person sent by Rulian shook his head and said lightly, "What Rulian wants is to get out. Whether you can keep your principal or not is not within Rulian's consideration. Rulian will only give you the equity in your hands at 0.65 yuan per share and package it and transfer it to the designated AMC company." As soon as this was said, Zhou Beichuan and others' expressions changed, and they were already cursing in their hearts. They were not allowed to withdraw with principal preserved, but wanted to cut their flesh and cut blood. Today's closing price of Prism Technology is 1.29 yuan, which is already a dog-like drop. The price of 0.65 yuan is equivalent to being cut in half on this basis. When Penghu Capital raised funds, it was based on a valuation of 1.5 billion. The discount of 0.65 yuan corresponds to the overall valuation of Prism Technology. Only 564 million yuan is left, which is definitely a bloody exit. After a while, Zhou Beichuan said bitterly, "You have said so much, Penghu Capital, admit it. I dare not deny it. I have to admit it. They are so powerful. How dare I deny it? If Rulian Group is completely offended, don't think about mixing in the circle in the future. It will not be as simple as a big injury. With the influence of Rulian Group and its network resources in the Beijing circle, it only needs to communicate with other big guys in the industry, say hello, and so on. With such a slight move, no one will dare to play with you Penghu Capital in the future, and you will not be able to get any resources. It won't take long for it to be cold. Penghu Capital is engaged in capital operation, and it is most afraid of this kind of thing. Unlike Xiao Yu, who is engaged in high-tech inventions and creations, if he comes up with some advanced technology one day, even the military will be interested and come with the will of the country. Even Rulian Group will have to stand aside. After Zhou Beichuan expressed his position, the other investors were unwilling, but they also expressed their willingness to admit their losses and cut their losses. If they don't know the current situation, they may owe a lot of debts at that time. They are engaged in capital operation and know that there are many ways to operate it. For example, when the time comes, Xiao Yu will acquire a company, and then the acquired company will suddenly have a large amount of contingent debt, which will be a complete mess. The so-called contingent debt is a hidden debt. If Prism Technology acquires such a company, it is equivalent to taking on these debts. As shareholders of the company, they have to bear this debt inexplicably. After the meeting, Zhou Beichuan returned to the headquarters of Penghu Capital and immediately asked his men to end the support for Prism Technology. It is meaningless to support the market now, and the first priority is to stop the loss quickly. Zhou Beichuan did not think it was his fault that he was kicked out in such a miserable way. He lost so miserably because Rulian Group was more powerful and he was not powerful enough. If Penghu Capital had the qualifications to challenge Rulian Group and the energy to compete with it, it would not have to be kicked out in such a cowardly way. Chapter 44, Compensation for Innocent Retail Investors Injured by Mistaken Means. Rulian Group had already prepared everything and was just waiting for Zhou Beichuan and other investors to sign and go through the process. The deal was settled in the bathhouse, and the process was completed 2.5 hours later. Penghu Capital and other investors packaged all the Prism Technology shares they held as non-performing assets and sold them to an AMC company at a bargain price of 0.65 yuan per share. The next morning, when Suking came to Xiao Yu's residence for this matter, I didn't expect Rulian to be so efficient. I estimated that it would take at least half a month. Xiao Yu was quite surprised. When Suking, who was sitting opposite him, said, "As long as the other party admits the loss and cuts their losses, the rest is to go through the process. It is reasonable that it will be fast." At this point, when Suking looked at Xiao Yu and added with a smile, "Zhou Beichuan and the others have already cut their losses at the floor price. I have successfully completed your commission. The rest will be much simpler." Upon hearing this, Xiao Yu looked at him and smiled. "So it's time to settle the remuneration. Do you plan to take 350 million in cash or equity?" When Suking jokingly said, "Based on the current market value of your company, 2.5% of the equity is worth less than 30 million. It's a big loss to take equity, so of course you have to settle in cash." Hearing this, Xiao Yu guessed in his heart that Wen Suking planned to continue staying in the Beijing circle, but it was not surprising that she was unwilling to develop in Linsao after learning that she was in love with a young master of the Xiong family. After all, Wen Suking didn't know that Xiao Yu had a teleportation ring, which meant that there was a blue planet's technology behind him to support his career on Earth. Wen Suking smiled and asked, "Rui Lian wants a board seat, you have to give it to them, right?" Xiao Yu answered concisely, "Of course, Prism Technology's shareholders have undergone major changes, but other matters will not change. Xiao Yu still has the right to nominate more than half of the directors. If Rui Lian wants 2 board seats, Xiao Yu can also nominate 2 directors. If Rui Lian wants 3 seats, Xiao Yu can enjoy the right to nominate 3 directors accordingly. With his vote as chairman, he will always have one more vote. The board of directors votes on a one-person one-vote system. There is no veto, and there is no 2/3 majority vote. As long as one party votes with more than one vote in favor, it can be passed. If one party votes with more than one vote against, it cannot be passed. Xiao Yu's right to nominate more than half of the directors guarantees that he will always have one more vote, which means he has absolute control over the board of directors. Wen Suking said, "Uncle Xiong has decided that I will be the director of Rui Lian stationed at Prism Technology." Xiao Yu was immediately surprised when he heard this. He thought Wen Suking had just declined the invitation to join Prism Technology in a joking way, but he didn't expect that he would represent Rui Lian to be a director of the company. That couldn't be better. It would be a natural thing for her to concurrently serve as the head of the company's legal department. Even if she doesn't serve as the legal affairs officer, as long as Wen Suking is a director of the company, her resources are here. This result exceeded Xiao Yu's expectations. And he immediately smiled and said, "You are very welcome." He had originally planned to allocate some option shares to Wen Suking. Since she is the daughter-in-law of the Xiong family and represents the interests of the Rulian Group, there is no need to allocate more shares. After chatting about other things for a while, Wen Suking said goodbye. Xiao Yu sent her to the door, and when he returned to the house, he called Yun Shu to arrange for the release of the announcement. It is an established fact that several investors of Penghu Capital have been eliminated. As a result, the equity structure of Prism Technology has undergone major changes, and according to regulations, it must be announced in a timely manner. At this moment, Xiao Yu turned on the computer to check the company's stock price trend, and then lurked in the stock bar comment area. The current stock bar comment area is full of retail investors who are trapped and wailing, as well as various street curses against Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu couldn't help but sigh after thinking for a long time, and said to himself, "Fortunately, I will not be short of money in the future. You are lucky to buy my company's stocks. Xiao Yu will cover all the losses of you small and medium-sized retail investors in this period of sharp decline." If it were other listed company bosses, they would have gone abroad to enjoy themselves, and they might even come back to ridicule them. Other listed companies would have cut leaks when they went out of such a tragic decline, but Xiao Yu did not cut leaks. He just fought with Penghu Capital and several investors, and inevitably hurt a large number of retail investors by mistake. Xiao Yu browsed the comment area of the stock bar and saw countless stockholders wailing. He felt sympathy and wanted to save his reputation, which had completely collapsed. He didn't want to live with the nickname Xiao Yu in the future. Moreover, Xiao Yu was really worried that the stockholders who had lost money would go to Linsao City to secretly squat, and then suddenly jump out to gank him. When he imagined this scene, Xiao Yu's face was also difficult to tense and turned into an expression pack of crying and laughing. At this moment, Xiao Yu has decided to pay for the shareholders who have suffered heavy losses during this period. No matter how much they have lost, they will be able to recover their losses, but only for small and medium-sized investors, that is, retail investors. Not only will they be able to recover their losses, but they will also be given an additional daily limit profit as compensation for the shock and suffering they have suffered during this period. In other words, no matter how much the shareholders who were accidentally injured during this period lost, Xiao Yu will pay for them to recover their losses. If they lose 80,000 yuan, if they buy 100,000 yuan, they will be compensated with 80,000 yuan, and they will be given a 20 centimeter daily limit based on the 100,000 yuan they bought, making a net profit of 20,000 yuan. As long as this matter is announced, Xiao Yu's reputation will definitely be easily restored, and it will bring him unprecedented positive reputation, because his decision has set an unprecedented precedent, which can be called a Xiangxiu level operation, and no one has ever played it this way. However, this matter cannot be announced to the public in a hurry, because the stock price has not fallen through yet and is still falling. After the decline stops and reverses, statistics will be made and the problem will be solved at one time. It can be foreseen that once this matter is announced, people from all walks of life will be shocked to the point of dropping their jaws. Stockholders will collectively call him Master Xiao. Whoever dares to call him Liu again will definitely be angry with him. Around 12 noon, Prism Technology issued a shareholder change announcement during the market holiday. As soon as this announcement was made, the stock market opened in the afternoon, and the stock price of Prism Technology plummeted by -20.16% and hit the limit down. The stock price hit a record low of 1.03 yuan, and the market value was only 894 million. When the stock price was hit to the limit down, there was no takeover order, because several investors of Penghu Capital had given up the support, and with the appearance of this announcement, the stock price showed a free fall trend, and no one dared to take it. After the market closed, the exchange immediately gave Prism Technology a street status, and the company's stock name was changed to ST Prism. Penghu Capital's investors sold their shares in Prism Technology to an AMC company in the form of non-performing assets. They were all non-performing assets, and the exchange also changed the name to ST Prism, to warn of delisting risks. Some people who were stuck and holding on were completely desperate and thought that Prism Technology would really be delisted and listed on the new third board, so they cut their positions and fled in tears. When the market opened on Thursday, the next day, ST Prism fell by -20.39% and opened at the limit down. The stock price fell to 0.82 yuan, breaking the 1 yuan price and setting a new historical low. Those who were waiting for a rebound were dumbfounded. I thought it was safe enough to fall to this price, but I didn't expect it to be killed and cut in half. On Friday, the last trading day of this week, the company's stock price fell to the limit again, hitting a new historical low of 0.66 yuan. After 3 consecutive limit falls, the company's total market value was only 572.88 million yuan. From the perspective of asset structure, Prism Technology's net assets are more than 2.5 billion yuan. It can be said that if you buy it at this price, You can triple or quadruple it. But few people dare to make a move to get it. The company is now in a mess, crossing borders to engage in food processing and grain trade. Recently, it was reported that it would spend a lot of money to acquire a supermarket in Linzhou to operate a large supermarket. According to this method, the net assets of 2.5 billion yuan will soon be lost. Now it seems that the premium is several times, and it may be lost in less than a year. No one dared to reach out, not to mention that it was going to be delisted. Buying in would really become a super long-term shareholder, or even a permanent shareholder. After the weekend, it was Monday, August 30th. Prism Technology did not continue to hit the limit down today, but opened sharply lower. However, after the low opening, the stock price continued to fall in a free fall, and finally fell to minus 19.70% to hit the limit down. The stock price fell to a historical low of 0.53 yuan. At this moment, the stock comment area is almost unpopular, with few comments, and most of them are scolding. I passed by and offered incense. It's really fucking. I just wanted to make a short-term rebound, but it was cut in half. It's what you deserve. This kind of junk stock is still being touched. Do you think it's safe when the stock price falls to 1 yuan? 1 yuan can still fall 50% and be cut in half to 50 cents, and 50 cents can still be cut in half to 25 cents. No matter what sins you committed in your previous life, you or even after playing the A-share market in this life, it is indeed going to be delisted. Too miserable. It's a pity that the 58,000 retail stockholders in it are gone, which is not much different from account cancellation. I have been trading stocks for more than 10 years. This is the worst sell-off I have ever seen in the A-share market. Last month, the stock price was still at 50.50, and now it is only a fraction of that. There's still about 3,000 yuan left. I will sell it tomorrow and take it out. It is enough to buy an electric car to deliver food. I have already made a plan JPG, although I feel sorry for it. Please forgive my insincere smile. I bought 1,000 lots to gamble. I would lose money elsewhere anyway. That's great. 1,000 lots means 100,000 shares, which costs more than 50,000 yuan. Why waste money like this? I also bought 35,000 shares, less than 20,000 yuan to gamble on a turnaround. I don't understand, but I respect it. Do you know why the A-share market can never get up? Or there are too many leaks, and they can never be cut. Chapter 45. The big announcement of reorganization caused a stir in the audience. The A-share market has a huge base of 160 million shareholders. Even the worst stocks have their attention. Prism Technology has been warned by Street and is likely to be delisted. While many people have left the market, there are also some people who come in with the mentality of taking a gamble to get some chips and pick up garbage. Anyway, it's cheap. Just treat it as throwing money away. Now the buyers and sellers are talking nonsense to each other, but the people who come in to buy chips are still a minority overall, and most people don't keep them. At present, the number of shareholders of Prism Technology has dropped sharply, with only 12,200 investors left. These 12,200 shareholders basically will not sell, and have prepared to be permanent shareholders. Some even directly uninstalled the stock trading software and didn't read it, just treating the money as gone. The next day, Prism Technology opened sharply lower again, with a 5 or 6 second rush to the high at the opening, and then fell again to minus 20.75% to close the limit, and the stock price fell to a historical low of 0.42 yuan, with a corresponding market value of only a pitiful 364.56 million, becoming the last listed company in the current A-share Shanghai and Shenzhen markets. In the afternoon, Yunshu came to Xiao Yu's villa from the company. How is the situation? Have you bought the stocks? Xiao Yu looked at the beautiful assistant sitting in front of him, and Yunshu nodded and replied, I have bought them. A total of 5.5 million shares were bought, and the average cost price was 0.5 yuan per share. Xiao Yu smiled and said, well, not bad, including the bonus shares. You now have a total of 8.5 million shares. Yunshu stared at Xiao Yu with a smile and said, I am really betting all my belongings now. I really listened to you and bet everything. If I lose everything, I will be penniless and homeless. If I really lose everything, I will definitely trouble you to live in your house. Hearing this, Xiao Yu smiled knowingly and thought about her words in his heart. If Qin Yu hadn't reported that Yunshu had privately inquired about Xu Jintang's divorce, Xiao Yu would really have thought that her words were just a simple joke. But after knowing some of Yunshu's thoughts, Maybe she was just saying what she was thinking at this moment through a joke. Since the butlers report that Xiao Yu has actually considered the possibility of starting a new relationship with Yunshu. Xiao Yu put away his thoughts, looked at Yunshu and said with a smile, "It's guaranteed to make money. If you lose everything, come to me anytime." This is somewhat of a hint. Let's take it one step at a time. It's hard to say about this kind of thing. Maybe it will come to fruition one day. His words made Yunshu's heart ripple, but she couldn't be sure if she was overthinking. After a moment, Yunshu couldn't help but smile and said, "You said that." This episode passed quickly, and Xiao Yu turned the topic to business. "You go and arrange to hold a board meeting at 1600 hours in the afternoon. The voting item is about planning a major asset reorganization. It has been a month since the last announcement. According to regulations, the asset reorganization can be restarted again." Yunshu was immediately confused. "Huh? With Linghan new materials?" Xiao Yu nodded calmly and said, "Of course, Zhou Beichuan has been kicked out. This time it is a real reorganization." Yunshu suddenly felt that those who had sold their stocks in tears in the past few days would probably be so angry that they vomited blood if they saw the news in the later announcement. For a moment, she couldn't help but feel some sympathy. Now there is no one in Prism Technology who can hinder Xiao Yu. The merger and reorganization of Linghan New Materials and Prism Technology was restarted, and the board of directors passed it without any suspense. Around 1750 in the afternoon, Prism Technology issued a heavy announcement. Linzhou Prism Technology Company, Limited intends to purchase the equity of Linzhou Linghan New Materials Company, Limited through major asset replacement and cash payment, and control 100% of the equity of Linghan New Materials. This transaction is expected to constitute an affiliated transaction in a major asset reorganization, but not a reorganization listing. When the stockholders saw this announcement, they shouted wow. It was almost exactly the same as the last announcement, with the biggest difference being that the equity was changed from 51% to 100% this time. The stockholders who saw the announcement rushed to forward it in forums and communication groups. The stock name of Prism Technology has now become ST Prism. It was not very popular. Most of the stockholders who had paid attention to the stock had deleted it from their favorite stock pool, and even blacklisted it. But at this moment, the popularity suddenly soared, and it rushed to the top of the popularity list in just over an hour. Thousands of stockholders heard the news and came to search for this stock to watch. The comment area of the stock bar, which was originally unpopular, suddenly became very lively. "Okay, Xiao Yu, you are playing like this, right? No, who in the family understands? Shiba Inu JPG, is there no one in the village to take care of it? You cheated once and you want to cheat again? Do you think all the stockholders are fools? Others at least wait a few years to get a cut, or even change the shell before cutting. You, Xiao Yu, are really stupid. It's been less than 2 months since the last time, and the reorganization announcement is almost exactly the same. I've never seen such a thing in my life. It's okay. This is a big Prism Technology, you can't imagine it, right? Haha, I cheated on Jingru Jink, and Linghan New Materials finally decided to marry me. Ha ha ha, it's you again, talented, you cheated on Jingru Jink. Just tell me if this is the case. Manually funny, damn it, Xiao Yu, give me back my money, I won't play anymore. Woo woo woo. The day before yesterday, I bought 1,000 lots at a cost of 0.53. Could it be? No way. How is it possible? In the afternoon, the stock price fell to the limit of 0.42 yuan, and I took half of the position. How can a gambler lose every day? How can you lose every time you work hard? Buy less, buy less, buy less. I have my own principles. I don't want to be stepped on by others all my life. Do you think I am a beggar? I have waited for 3 years, just to wait for an opportunity. I want to fight for it. I don't want to prove that I am great. I want to tell others that I must get back what I lost. Doghead, doghead, doghead. On 1.1, you told me that you want to reorganize again? If you want the reorganization to succeed, I will explode on the spot. I will die quickly and delist directly. Hurry up. The popularity of Prism Technology has been raised again, but this time everyone basically doesn't believe it, mainly because Xiao Yu's operation is too outrageous, and most people just watch the fun. The previous reorganization tragedy is still vivid in my mind, and it has been less than 2 months. Just when everyone didn't believe it, Prism Technology issued a heavy announcement late at night. The company received a notice from Rulian Group, and Rulian Group officially raised its stake in Prism Technology to 5% of the total share capital in the secondary market. According to relevant regulations, major shareholders must raise their stakes when they increase their holdings to 5%, that is, to make it clear to the market. I have already bought 5% of the company's shares. If I continue to increase my holdings and buy another 5%, I must raise my stake again. Moreover, if the major shareholders' shareholding ratio exceeds 5%, there will be a 6-month lockup period after raising the stake, and the reduction of stocks must be announced to the market 15 trading days in advance. As soon as the news of Rulian's stake came out, the whole venue exploded instantly. All funds in the market immediately hung up the overnight limit price and frantically queued up orders, fearing that they would not be able to grab the chips if they were a second late. When the merger and reorganization announcement was released before, shareholders said that they could not believe a single punctuation mark in Xiao Yu's announcement. But now, with the news of Rulian Group's stake raising, it has completely reversed. What does Rulian Group's placard mean? All kinds of funds can understand something. The signal released by the placard is obvious. This time it is definitely not a wolf cry drama, but a real thing. At this moment, the popularity of the stock market has exploded in the middle of the night, and the stock bar comment area has completely exploded. How Waldemay, I am not dreaming, am I going to get rich? I went all in today, 100,000 yuan directly went in, here's a screenshot, fuck. Really went all in? Awesome, I'm crying. This overnight order must be topped up, 0.42 yuan per share, less than 50 cents, an epic gold pit. I have placed an overnight order, I don't know if I can get in tomorrow. Fuck, people who buy at the bottom of 0.42 must be making a lot of money, right? If it rises to 4.62 yuan, you can make 10 times the profit. If it rises to 10 yuan per share, it will be more than 22 times. If it rises to 50 yuan and breaks the historical high, it will be 118 times. Damn it, I am so jealous. I bought in with a heavy position yesterday when it hit the limit down, but today I couldn't bear the limit down and sold it at a loss of 20 points. If you continue to sell at the limit down, I can still feel better, but as soon as I sold my losses, you told me that you want to reorganize again, and Rulian also raised the placard? I can't accept this. I cried and slapped my thighs. Okay, my mentality exploded on the spot. I bought in at 37 yuan and suffered 15 limit downs in a row. When I saw today's news, I was so angry that I was injured. It hurts too much. I have angina pectoris, and it hurts my heart. Those who posted pictures in the comments section to buy at the bottom of 0.42, I advise you to be careful. You can buy at such a bottom by stealing the secret of heaven. You won't live long, I tell you. Damn. Why didn't I buy it? Chapter 46, Downstream manufacturers flock to research and inquire. The next day, Wednesday, September 1st. Prism Technology opened with a daily limit with a reduced volume today without any suspense, and the stock price rebounded from 0.42 yuan to 0.5 yuan. Now everyone knows that Prism Technology will count the daily limit in the future, with a return of plus 20% every day. Those who have chips are holding on to them firmly, and they are all reluctant to sell. Xiao Yu glanced at the company's stock price and stopped paying attention to it. In the next period of time, he will not pay attention to the company's stock trend frequently. Now that the great revenge has been avenged and the cause and effect have been settled, the stock trend of Prism Technology in the secondary market will let various funds go to play by themselves. In the following days, Xiao Yu began to work on the merger of Prism Technology and Linghan New Materials. This merger and reorganization is that Prism Technology will acquire 100% of Linghan New Materials shares, which is equivalent to 100% absolute control. However, Linghan New Materials will not be directly cancelled, but will become a 100% controlled subsidiary of Prism Technology, and at the same time merge its financial statements with the parent company. Under pressure from Rulian, several investors of Penghu Capital were extremely unwilling but had to admit their losses at the floor price. They no longer had anything to do with Prism Technology. Even if they knew that the share price of Prism Technology would rise sharply in the future, they would never dare to reach out. This benefit was no longer something they could get involved in. They knew this very well. At present, the merger and reorganization of the two companies is progressing smoothly, and all matters are progressing steadily. At the same time, The company was also very busy during this period. People from securities institutions, investment institutions, and many public and private equity fund managers came to the company for inspection and research. Xiao Yu did not receive these people, but the company's executives would receive them. Obviously, this is Rulian Group exerting its influence in the circle. Wen Suking also told Xiao Yu that Rulian would do market value management for Prism Technology after entering the market. To put it bluntly, it is to push up the company's stock price and market value, and to pull a large number of institutions to work together to push the stock price to a reasonable price. Now there are a lot of institutional people who come to the company to conduct research. Rulian Group must have played a significant role in this. Xiang Chongwang's connections and influence in the capital circle are obviously not comparable to Zhou Beichuan. After entering September, the company's stock price has been plus 20% daily limit, and the opening is a limit with reduced volume. The stock price is oversold too seriously. Now the shareholders who hold Prism Technology stocks go home as soon as the market opens, and reap plus 20% returns every day. This is a feast for holders. The shareholders who have withstood this round of explosive killings are now reaping the rewards of unimaginable returns. Those who miss the opportunity can only watch. Those who were not in the car at the end of last month would not have the opportunity to get such cheap chips. Now everyone knows that the stock price of Prism Technology is incredibly cheap, and the car door has been welded shut. In addition to various investment institutions in the capital market, many other potential corporate customers have come to Prism Technology to conduct research and inquire about the company's graphene materials. There are many well-known technology companies in various industries, including Apple, which has sent people here. It must be said that the application of graphene materials is very wide, and the development of many high-end industries has a strong demand for graphene. Prism Technology, Chairman's Office. Is this the cooperation request from Apple? Xiao Yu looked at the document in his hand. There was another man in the office named Su Changming. He was a core executive of the company, a veteran member of Prism Technology, and a capable member of Xiao Yu's team. And the request cannot be changed, Su Changming nodded. During this period, he was responsible for receiving major downstream manufacturers who came to the company to investigate and inquire about graphene materials. Haha, I think Apple's used to being the boss in the mobile phone industry. It wants to continue to be the boss and let me be the grandson. Xiao Yu said this with a somewhat sarcastic tone, and threw the document aside with his backhand while speaking. This time, Apple sent someone to discuss business cooperation, so that Prism Technology can become a supply chain company under Apple, providing batteries and display screens designed with the graphene materials for Apple's electronic products, including smartphones, smartwatches, tablets and laptops. Prism Technology's main product promotion is currently a battery designed and developed with the graphene materials. The drawbacks of batteries made of graphene materials have been solved by scientists on Blue Star. When placed on Earth, their competitiveness is immediately reflected. In addition, there is a fully transparent flexible screen developed and produced with graphene materials. The people from Apple found Prism Technology this time and proposed cooperation conditions that made Xiao Yu very unhappy. Prism Technology has an exclusive monopoly on technology. Xiao Yu is going to be a supplier father, but Apple wants Prism Technology to be another grandson in its supply chain. There are mainly three conditions for cooperation. First, setting up an exclusive R&D team for Apple is not a big problem. As long as the money is in place, there is nothing wrong with pulling a group of people to be responsible for Apple's business. Second, Apple requires exclusive first-time supply, such as this fully transparent flexible screen, battery and other products. The first-time products can only be used for iPhones and other Apple electronic products within 3 years. Other peers such as Xiaomi, Huawei, and Blue and Green Factory also want to find Prism Technology for supply, but they have to wait 3 years. Third, it requires Prism Technology to set up a special graphene battery and fully transparent flexible screen factory in North America. There is nothing wrong with the three conditions proposed by Apple except the first one. Xiao Yu was also very nervous when he saw the last two conditions. Last year, Huawei's global sales of mobile phones topped the world, and it was immediately suppressed to the extreme. The Kirin chip, which had been painstakingly developed and designed for many years, became a swan song. All manufacturers involved in Beamer e-technology could not supply Huawei normally. And chip foundry companies no longer foundry Kirin chips for Huawei, resulting in Huawei's lack of chips and its mobile phone business being cut in half. Given the current confrontation between Dongda and Emory in the field of science and technology, let Prism Technology go to Beamer to build a factory? And it is required that it cannot supply manufacturers that compete with Apple within 3 years. This calculation is not even pretended, which shows its arrogance. Other peer manufacturers can only use it after 3 years, but it will definitely not be the most advanced products, so as to ensure that Apple's products maintain their leading edge. At this time, Xiao Yu glanced at the document and said bluntly, "Just give up cooperation with Apple. It doesn't matter if you don't do this business. You are used to it and don't understand the situation. I have a monopoly on Prism Technology and it is the only one in the world. I am the supplier of downstream manufacturers. They have to look at my face and beg me to supply them." Chapter 47, All mobile phone manufacturers want to grab the first launch of 100 full-screen phones. The competitiveness of the graphene material products under Prism Technology is there. Looking at the entire world, no one can rival it. Not only can it be mass-produced, but the quality purity is the best in the world, and the price can be 10 times, or even dozens or hundreds of times cheaper than the current market price. With such a competitive advantage, no similar competitor can rival Prism Technology. Another thing is that graphene materials have too many applications, and they are not only used to make mobile phone batteries and screens. A series of high-end industries such as aerospace, energy storage, electronic devices, and biosensors have a strong demand for graphene materials. Electronic products such as smartphones and tablets are just an application scenario in the subdivided fields. In addition to the commercial market, it also includes the military market. The company is not worried about having no customers, and the actual situation must be in a state of supply exceeding demand. If you want to get goods from Prism Technology, you have to queue up. Apple wants to come here to be the uncle, but Xiao Yu obviously won't indulge it, and he doesn't even bother to pay attention. At this moment, Xiao Yu picked up another document and looked at it for a while, then nodded and smiled. Okay, these domestic manufacturers look like they are willing to cooperate. Compared with Apple's arrogant attitude, many domestic manufacturers are much more pragmatic, and basically they are talking about cooperation and a begging attitude. Although Xiao Yu did not meet with potential customers who came to investigate and inquire, he could also feel the sincerity from the cooperation proposals put forward in the materials. To be precise, they clearly realized that they did not have much bargaining power with Prism Technology, and they knew very well that Prism Technology's products would not lack buyers at all, so they had to lower their attitude. After a while, Su Chengming said, "I have entertained dozens of manufacturers who came to investigate and inquire. The military is expected to take about 70% of the production capacity, and the remaining 30% of the production capacity cannot meet the strong demand of the civilian market at all. Graphene materials are already in great demand in the high-end industry field. Prism Technology can provide higher quality and cheaper products, and the scale of demand will definitely be further enlarged." Su Chengming went on to say, "To be honest, it's quite a headache now. There are too many people and too little meat. One company didn't get the goods, especially since the two companies' products are in competition with each other. The one that didn't get the goods must be angry. The manufacturers who came to Prism Technology to conduct research and inquire about prices this time are not only Apple, but also mainland manufacturers such as Xiaomi and Blue and Green Factory. They all sent people here because they all want their next-generation flagship mobile phone products to grab the first launch of 100% full screen, say goodbye to the extreme screen and bang screen, and realize the real 100% full screen mobile phone. This is a big selling point, so everyone wants to grab the first launch. Prism Technology's production capacity is insufficient, so it is even more necessary to grab it. If you get the supply, your peers will not have the goods. For a period of time, there will be only one brand on the market that can achieve 100% full-screen mobile phones, which is equivalent to an exclusive selling point, and the advantage is definitely huge." Su Chengming suggested, "Our market pricing is obviously too low. Even if we raise the price by 2 or 3 times, it is completely reasonable. After all, our product competitiveness is unmatched in the market." Xiao Yu rejected the proposal without thinking. "The price remains unchanged. I have made up my mind." Xiao Yu weighed the pros and cons and considered the market pricing of graphene materials carefully. It is not only to stabilize the irrational and terrifying profit margin, but more importantly, Xiao Yu needs to accelerate the development of the entire Earth science and technology. The acceleration of the development of Earth science and technology is to deal with other black technology products in the blue star world, because they are too advanced to be brought to the Earth rashly. For example, the smart holographic bracelet. The blue star world has already popularized the holographic bracelet as early as the smartphones on the Earth. But such a black technology product that obviously surpasses the Earth's era cannot be directly brought out rashly. People in the industry can easily conclude that this is not a product that can be produced by the current level of science and technology on the Earth. Therefore, a complete set of technology industry chain system must be built, involving many technical industries such as chips, displays, and communications. Only when the entire industrial system is in place, Xiao Yu dares to bring the holographic bracelet to Earth with confidence. Involving so many industries, it is obviously not something that Xiao Yu alone or Prism Technology can handle. Even if it can be done, it will take a long time, 10 years? 20 years? Xiao is obviously unwilling to wait that long. Graphene has the reputation of the king of new materials and is widely used in high-end industries. The price is too high, and it can only be a niche market forever. So far, the annual output value of global graphene materials on Earth is less than 1 trillion yuan. Only by lowering the price of materials and releasing a larger market scale, so that many technology companies can afford to use such materials, their products will be more advanced, more competitive, and they can make more money. With sufficient profit support, companies can increase their investment in the research and development of new technologies, and the development of the entire technology industry will naturally accelerate. Moreover, the price has been lowered, which does not mean that Prism Technology will make less money, it will definitely make more money. The high price makes the output value of the entire industry unable to break through 1 trillion. Even if Prism Technology monopolizes the profits of the entire industry, it can only make so much. But the price has been lowered, releasing a larger market scale. The output value of the entire industry has expanded to 10 trillion. Even if Prism Technology takes half of the market share, it will still be 5 trillion, which is obviously more profitable. From this perspective, the price must be lowered. Another thing is that from the perspective of corporate competition, if the price is lowered in one go, the competitors will not die suddenly on the spot, but will be seriously injured. Your product is not only better than his, but also dozens of times cheaper than his. His customers will inevitably come to you to purchase goods, and competitors cannot follow up with you to reduce prices to the same level. They can't keep up, otherwise the company will go bankrupt and close down the next day. At this time, Su Changming said, "But if we don't raise the price and sell it at such a low price, if I were a buyer, I would definitely not use it in my own end products. Instead, I would resell the graphene materials purchased from Prism Technology at a higher price and become a middleman." Su Changming continued, "For example, scientific research-grade graphene, the company's price is 999 yuan per gram. If I were a buyer, I could easily sell it by raising the price to 3,000 yuan per gram or even 5,000 yuan per gram after receiving the goods. I can easily make more than 4 times the profit by just reselling it, making more than Prism Technology. Why bother doing other things, then?" Su Changming added, "I received dozens of research inquiries from potential enterprise-level customers this time, and I found that more than a dozen of them were not technology companies at all. I dare to conclude that they must be aiming to buy goods from us at a low price and resell them as middlemen." Hearing this, Xiao Yu nodded, "You are right, this problem must be solved. We must not allow some people to take the goods from us and resell them to make huge profits. The huge profits were taken away by the middlemen, and it also seriously hindered the accelerated development of the Earth science and technology industry system. This is something Xiao Yu absolutely cannot accept." Chapter 48. If you don't sign the supplementary agreement, we won't sell. One of the strategic goals of bringing down product prices is to accelerate the development of Earth science and technology. If a group of profiteers resell them at high prices, the price will be pushed up again, causing some technology companies to be unable to afford the cost of graphene materials, hindering the efficiency of technological iteration. Xiao Yu now hopes that the technology tree on Earth can rise quickly, so that many high-tech products from Blue Star can be reasonably brought to Earth. After a while, Su Changming suggested, "Then let's sign a supplementary agreement with the supplier. The company that receives the goods must agree that the materials can only be used for its own products. It is forbidden to resell them for the second time, and it is forbidden to use them for other products outside the contract. If they breach the contract, they must pay a penalty of more than 10 times the purchase price. Su Changming added, if you are unwilling to sign this agreement, we will not sell it. Xiao Yu immediately made a decision, just do as you say. This method is very good. Although it seems a bit of an overlord clause, we have the confidence. The market is completely tilted towards the seller. The buyer has no bargaining power. If they don't agree, I won't do business with them. Anyway, there are military orders to back it up. I don't care if the civilian market doesn't sell a gram. In reality, it is impossible not to sell. The graphene materials provided by Prism Technology not only have a higher quality and purity than all other payers, but also are 1 or even 2 orders of magnitude cheaper than them. In addition, the application field is so wide that there are application scenarios in almost all high-end industrial fields involved. Not to mention that there are military orders as a backup, and the military orders alone can ensure that the company has a stable revenue channel. The matter was directly decided. Enterprise-level customers in the civilian market, no matter who comes to purchase graphene materials, must sign this supplementary agreement, and they will not be sold without signing. The two talked for a while, and Su Changming also went to arrange this matter and met again with those potential customers who came to inquire about prices and research. Xiao Yu pondered for a moment, got up and went to his desk to pick up the landline phone to call Yunshu and Fu Kang respectively, asking them to come to see him. Fu Kang is also a core executive of Prism Technology. He was an initial team that joined Prism Technology in the early days and a veteran member of the company. Not long after, the two came to Xiao Yu's office one after another. Xiao Yu sat down on the sofa in the office lounge and looked at Fu Kang, who was sitting opposite him. Brother Fu, you are taking a team abroad to conduct research and investigation around the world. Fu Kang was surprised and said, leading a team to conduct research abroad? What are you going to do? Xiao Yu smiled and said, the company is already engaged in food processing and grain trade across borders. Your overseas research this time is to do this on a global scale. Our company's food processing and grain trade business must take the lead in going overseas for global layout. After this, Fu Kang and Yunshu, who were present, could not help but be stunned for a moment. Fu Kang reacted and said quickly, Mr. Xiao, are you kidding? Are you really coming? The company's cross-border food processing and grain trade is not for you to suppress those investors. As a core member of the company, Fu Kang also knew that Xiao Yu had asked the company to cross borders to engage in food processing and grain trade in order to suppress the stock price and make Penghu Capital and several investors lose money and leave, but he only knew so much. But now, Xiao Yu suddenly told him that he was going abroad for research, and it was for the company to globalize the layout of food processing and grain trade. This really confused Fu Kang, who didn't understand what Xiao Yu was up to. Obviously, Xiao Yu had already begun to actively plan for the large-scale food trade from the Earth in the future. He must expand the food processing and food trade business on a global scale. Some things are more convenient to do overseas. He couldn't tell anyone about this kind of thing, but he still had to make up a reason. Xiao Yu thought about it in his heart. After a moment, he thought of a reason, so he looked at Fu Kang and said calmly, the decision to cross-border do this business is not just to fight with Zhou Beichuan and other investors. This is just a side job at best. Side job? Fu Kang looked puzzled, and Yunshu beside him was silent, looking at Xiao Yu with a half-believing and half-doubting look. The company wants to be a world-class technology giant, and its future business will definitely be spread all over the world. Some things must be arranged in advance, so as not to cram at the last minute, Xiao Yu said calmly and confidently. When Fu Kang heard this, he couldn't help but say, okay, but the question is, what does this have to do with cross-border food prices and grain trade? It is worth mentioning that Fu Kang now believes that the company can become a world-class technology giant. Not to mention other things, the graphene material business alone is enough to grow into a giant-level enterprise, but this seems to have nothing to do with cross-border food processing and grain trade, right? They are completely unrelated. At this moment, Fu Kang couldn't help but murmur in his heart. Xiao Yu smiled and said, it's a big deal. Some areas in foreign countries don't have much money. If we go to South America to develop business in the future, the local people don't have money, but they have products like grain and beef, and we can use these to offset the price. Huawei's customers there didn't have money to settle the bills, so they ended up using beef to offset the payment, and were forced to become an imported beef supplier. Xiao Yu brought up the example of Huawei, And then continued, there is a high probability that we will encounter similar situations in the future. Our customers in South America don't have money to settle the bills, so they may use beef, soybeans, sugar and other grains and meat to offset the payment. If we receive these things, do we need food processing plants to process them? Do we need grain trading companies to handle them? Fu Kang opened his mouth for a long time but couldn't find a reason to refute Xiao Yu. His argument was well-founded, and there was nothing wrong with it, but he was speechless. Xiao Yu leaned back against the sofa, crossed his legs and smiled. That's why I decided to open a large supermarket in Linzhou. We can also learn from Huawei's good ideas. For example, our company can also set up an online and offline interconnected life mall. This life mall is carefully selected by the company and can provide a rich shopping mall, covering wine, beef, seafood, rice oil, nuts, tea, honey and other daily necessities. After a pause, Xiao Yu added, the main service objects of the life mall are our company's employees and their families, just like the company's canteen for its own employees, providing a series of high-quality daily necessities to improve the quality of life of employees. It is well-reasoned and reasonable. It can also provide a good cover for Xiao Yu to sell food products on a large scale in Blue Star in the future. It is reassuring to have channels in his own hands, and it is convenient to have channels all over the world. At this moment, Fu Kang heard what Xiao Yu said and felt that it was indeed reasonable. This is also the way big companies like Huawei do it. Since they have the ambition to grow Prism technology into a global giant, there is nothing wrong with planning these supporting matters in advance. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Riding AI Agents. After hearing what Xiao Yu said, Fu Kang believed it and even felt that it was necessary to do so. After a moment, Fu Kang nodded and said, okay, no problem, leave it to me. I will take a team to travel around the world after I finish the things at hand. Xiao Yu was very satisfied with this. I will leave this to you. You don't have to worry about the funding. You should aim to expand and specialize in the business of food processing and grain trade. If necessary, you can also split this business out and operate it as a subsidiary in the future. Fu Kang nodded again. I understand. After a few words, he left Xiao Yu's office. Yun Shu, who had never spoken, saw Fu Kang walk out of the office, retracted his gaze and turned his head slightly to look at Xiao Yu. What do you want me to arrange? Xiao Yu also thought of a very good way to cover up the potential problem of the disappearance of a large amount of food. Large-scale food transfer to Blue Star means that a large amount of food will suddenly disappear on Earth. Where did this food go? There must be an answer. Xiao Yu thought of two words, charity. Under the banner of charity worldwide, for example, in Africa, turbulent areas, and poor areas suffering from famine, a large amount of food and supplies can be transported there, and a portion of it can be taken out and traded to the Blue Star world. When the Earth reports the accounts, all of them are written in the account book of humanitarian charity aid. In some famine and turbulent areas in Africa, food and supplies are transported there, and it is said that they are all distributed to local refugees. You can say how much is distributed, and you can even say that it was hijacked. After all, this is normal in a chaotic place, and there is no way to trace the source and verify it. It can not only cover up the food and supplies that are traded to the Blue Star world, but also win a good reputation. Why not do it? Xiao Yu looked at Yun Shu and immediately said to her, you go and arrange something. The company will set up a charity department. When it grows bigger and has more influence in the future, people will criticize you for not having social responsibility and sense of responsibility if you don't do charity. Yun Shu had no idea what Xiao Yu's biggest purpose was for doing charity, but his words made the beautiful assistant feel that it made sense. When a company grows bigger, it should indeed do some charity, even if it is to improve the company's positive image. We need to have a big picture, and we need to look big, so our company's charity cannot be narrowly focused on the domestic market. We need to look at the world and the whole world. After all, our country is now advocating the values of a community with a shared future for mankind worldwide. Looking at the world can better stick to the theme of a community with a shared future. Yun Shu, who was sitting next to him, couldn't see Xiao Yu's hidden purpose at all. She felt that what he said made sense and was indeed not wrong. This was conducive to maintaining the company's positive image. When a company grows bigger and its business spreads all over the world, it is necessary to brush up on the local goodwill and get some good guy cards from the locals. Xiao Yu said calmly, "So, our company should engage in charity and gradually face globalization." Yunshu nodded and replied, "Well, I will arrange the things you told me later." Xiao Yu glanced at the beautiful assistant and smiled, "Go and arrange it." As Yunshu left, Xiao Yu sat alone on the sofa and reviewed his arrangements in general. After confirming that there were no omissions, he nodded with satisfaction. With his left hand engaged in food processing and grain trade, and his right hand promoting charity, the two were perfectly connected. In the future, with the help of charity, he will go to Africa to distribute humanitarian relief food, and he can also divert some food supplies to the Blue Star world. The outside world will not find any abnormalities, and it will not be able to trace the source at all. In the afternoon, Xiao Yu returned to his villa. The basement of his private villa has been transformed into a private laboratory. No one can come in privately without Xiao Yu's permission. Arriving at the private laboratory in the basement, Xiao Yu opened the teleportation star gate and came to the Blue Star world again. The main purpose of this trip to Blue Star is to reserve 2,000 tons of graphene materials and ensure that Earth has a 2,000-ton production capacity supply in the next year. At this moment, Xiao Yu crossed the teleportation star gate and came to his private villa in Fenquin City, Blue Star world. He glanced at the time here. It has only been a few hours since he last left Blue Star. Xiao Yu sat alone on the sofa in the living room, and at the same time operated a holographic bracelet to call up a display panel, comparing the price of 2,000 tons of graphene material production capacity one by one, and calculated the price according to different qualities. 2,000 tons of graphene will cost about 188 million star yuan. Xiao Yu looked at the calculated result, which was much cheaper than he expected. Graphene materials of different qualities also have different prices in the Blue Star world. The most expensive one is the one with a purity of 99% and 99s after the decimal point. The market price on Blue Star is 3,500 star yuan per kilogram. It costs 350 million star yuan to purchase 100 tons of this level of material. However, Xiao Yu did not need to purchase such high-quality products this time. The top products shown to the military research team before were only of the level of 59s after the decimal point, and only no more than 150 tons were purchased. The remaining 1,850 tons were of relatively lower quality, and the price also dropped exponentially. All 2,000 tons of graphene materials can be done with less than 190 million star yuan. If you set up a factory to prepare and produce them yourself, it can be cheaper, but not much cheaper, because in the Blue Star world, this is low-end industrial manufacturing with a profit margin of only about 5%. At this moment, Xiao Yu was thinking about another thing. Although 2,000 tons of graphene materials are not an astronomical figure, if Xiao Yu carries them alone, he will be exhausted, and then he will have to carry food products from the Earth to the Blue Star. Xiao Yu obviously cannot ask others to help. There is only one solution, that is, to rely on intelligent robots to solve it. The artificial intelligence technology in the Blue Star world is advanced, but Xiao Yu did not dare to take the risk of buying a batch of robots directly to do this, because there is no guarantee that the scenes seen by the eye cameras of these robots will be uploaded to the back-end database of the company that manufactured them. This potential risk must be eliminated, so Xiao Yu can only program his own algorithm to develop an independent AI agent and replace it. Only in this way can he use it without worries. In the following days, Xiao Yu stayed in the villa in the Blue Star world to take online classes. He read a lot of technical papers and various documents published in the field of AI on the internet. Although the most cutting-edge AI technology in the Blue Star world is not available online, the relatively backward AI technology can be found, which is completely enough for Xiao Yu. Even if it is a relatively backward AI technology achievement that can be made public in the Blue Star world, it is also a world-leading black technology on Earth. Chapter 50, Vita's Industrial Group. Xiao Yu was like a sponge, madly absorbing the AI technology knowledge disclosed in this world on Blue Star. He himself was a genius technology developer, and the AI technology knowledge disclosed by Blue Star was no different from copying homework for him. There was a difference in the speed of time between the two worlds. Xiao Yu was on Blue Star, which gave him plenty of time to stay on Blue Star to absorb knowledge. Unknowingly, 10 Blue Star days had passed. During this period, The company on Blue Star was also on the right track, and the company was also purchasing graphene materials according to the boss's requirements. After another 2 Blue Star days, in the morning of local time, Xiao Yu put on a breathing mask and left his private villa. Although Fenquin City is also a large city with a population of more than 6 million, it does not have the favorable conditions of Xianti City, and you still have to wear a breathing mask when going out. Put down your work first and come to accompany me to the city. I've sent you the location. Xiao Yu contacted Yan Lingjun, an assistant and secretary who works in the company. Okay, I'll be there right away, Yan Lingjun responded. About 20 minutes later, Yan Lingjun arrived at the agreed location. She came to Xiao Yu and said, Mr. Xiao, what are we going to do in the city? Xiao Yu said as he walked. Let's go to the store of Vera's Industrial Group. Yan Lingjun asked curiously, are you going to buy a butler robot? Vita's Industrial Group is a high-tech company that sells intelligent robot products. The company is not a local enterprise in Zhongzhou Xiangguo, but a multinational technology giant from Daxishao. It has offline stores in major cities in Zhongzhou Xiangguo. Xiao Yu also learned about this company recently while absorbing the AI knowledge disclosed by Blue Star. He is indeed interested in buying it, but he bought it mainly for disassembly, research and analysis. Vita's Industrial Group has an offline store in Fenquin City, which is not very far from where Xiao Yu and his friends are now. It takes about 5 or 6 minutes to walk there, so they did not take any transportation and walk directly there. 5 minutes later, the two arrived at their destination. Xiao Yu stopped in front of the offline store of Vera's Industrial Group and took a look, then entered the store. Yan Lingjun, who was accompanying him, followed him silently. Both of them took off their breathing masks when they entered the store. They could breathe normally inside the store. Soon, a salesperson came to greet them warmly. Xiao Yu looked around. In the exhibition hall of the store, there were various intelligent robot products with different functions, including home robots and industrial robots. In addition, Vita's Industrial Group also sells various forms of armed robot products, but this store is for the civilian market and does not have military products. What is the best-selling product in your store? Xiao Yu turned to ask the salesperson next to him. Hearing this, the salesperson smiled and replied, the most popular product under Vita's Industrial is the bionic humanoid robot, among which the N22814X model is the best-selling model. This is the official code name of the product. You can customize the name for it after purchasing it. Please come this way, sir. Xiao Yu followed the salesperson to a booth. A bionic humanoid robot beauty was displayed on a 30-centimeter-high cylindrical booth. At this time, Xiao Yu was calm on the surface, but he was very amazed in his heart. He looked at this beautiful bionic humanoid robot. Its appearance was too real. It was impossible to tell whether it was a real person or a robot with a naked eye. There was no so-called uncanny valley effect of the robot, because it was almost exactly the same as a human. Only a blue halo with a diameter of about 15 millimeters on the left temple of a head proved that she was a bionic humanoid robot. As a man-made product, she has the most perfect supermodel-level body proportions and angelic appearance. This multifunctional bionic robot can take on multiple duties and can perfectly serve as the owner's personal secretary, housekeeper, maid, assistant, etc. The shopping guide standing next to him introduced to Xiao Yu. At this moment, the beautiful bionic robot on the cylindrical booth seemed to notice that Xiao Yu was paying attention to her. She suddenly made a provocative pose towards Xiao Yu, leaned forward with one hand on her knees, and threw a kiss to Xiao Yu with the other hand. Her eyes were full of charming charm. Every move was fascinating, as if suggesting that Xiao Yu should buy her home quickly. However, Xiao Yu was unmoved at the moment. His focus was on the extremely smooth and silky body movements of this beautiful robot. In every move just now, there was no stiffness in the joints of her limbs, which made Xiao Yu, an earthling, feel amazed. If she was placed on the street, if you didn't notice the halo at the temple of her side face, you couldn't tell that she was a man-made robot. Can I touch it? Xiao Yu turned to ask the salesperson. He wanted to feel the texture of the skin of this bionic robot. The salesperson nodded and smiled. Of course, no problem, you can do it as you like. Hearing this, Xiao Yu immediately approached the beautiful robot. She seemed to have heard and understood the conversation between Xiao Yu and the salesperson just now. When Xiao Yu stretched out his hand, she also slowly stretched out her hand. Xiao Yu personally touched her white hand and felt the skin of this beautiful robot. Whether it was texture, elasticity, or texture, it was highly similar to that of an organic life form, and it also had the same body temperature as a human. When it was almost done, Xiao Yu withdrew his hand and couldn't help saying, "No wonder it's so popular. It's no different from a human in every way, except that it's not a human." The shopping guide next to him once again silently glanced at the beautiful woman following Xiao Yu. Seeing Yan Lingjun dressed in a professional suit, the shopping guide roughly confirmed that she should not be Xiao Yu's girlfriend, so he looked at Xiao Yu and said with a smile, "This robot product can also provide physiological needs, and she will deal with it herself afterwards. She is also a very good partner and can meet the owner's various needs in all aspects." Hearing this, Xiao Yu was stunned for a moment and couldn't help laughing. In his heart, he exclaimed, "Wow, this bionic humanoid robot is really comprehensive. It can buy groceries and cook, take care of people, assist the owner at work, and even warm the bed." The shopping guide clerk said, "Sir, what you are seeing now is the official image definition of this product. If you confirm that you want to buy it, the company will change it to the appearance you want based on the data you provide. Except for the height and skeleton, the appearance, three-dimensional and other data can be customized." Xiao Yu was quite surprised to hear this, but it was reasonable to think about it. Most customers certainly don't like the robot they buy to be exactly the same as others. This will not only make them feel uncomfortable psychologically, but also make them easily mistaken or even cause misunderstandings. This robot product produced by Vidas Industrial has a different appearance and image customization service for each single product, which solves this problem. Customers can customize their appearance and figure, but their height cannot be changed, which will greatly increase the cost. It is not that they cannot change, but that will cost more money. Vidas Industrial Group has such advanced private customization services. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.